Brother! Her eyes were red and she could not utter a word. Shen Wenshao gently patted her head and advised her to return and freshen up before paying respects to the Zhang family. The unfilial grandson has caused his grandmother worry in just a few short months. It seemed that Zhang had aged several years, her face now adorned with numerous lines of worry. It is good that you are back. It is good indeed. Shen Wenshao had lost much weight, yet his gaze had grown even sharper. From now on, I shall exercise caution, ensuring that I do not repeat the same mistakes. During his time in prison, Shen Wenshao reflected deeply. He realized how naive he had been in the past. He had believed that relying solely on his lifelong knowledge, without leaning on anyone, would allow him to establish a firm footing. Yet, he discovered that such was not the case. Those in positions of power could easily manipulate him, rendering him immobile, forcing him to watch helplessly as his family suffered for his plight. He yearned to ascend to a position free from coercion more swiftly. Yet sometimes, pride can become an impediment. Brother, you should rest well for now. We can discuss future matters later, as long as you are safe. That is what truly matters. Shen Luan felt a pang of sorrow seeing her brother so emaciated. He had once been a figure of elegance. Now he appeared as though a gust of wind could sweep him away. His skin, long deprived of sunlight, had taken on an unnatural pallor, and his wrists were as slender as mere bones. However, Shen Wenshao's spirit remained intact. He had not endured much hardship in prison. As the Ninth Prince's men had not caused him trouble, a bit of recuperation would suffice. He glanced at Shen Luan and said, "Come with me. I have some questions I wish to ask you." Shen Luan looked at Zhang and then at Jean, both of whom nodded affirmatively. Yet, she felt a flutter of anxiety. Her brother's tone resembled that of previous admonishments, and it was only his return that had prompted this. Following obediently into Shen Wenshao's courtyard, she noted that it was arranged just as it had been before his departure. After sending the attendants away, Shen Wenshao took his usual seat. Chapter 150. Obedience. Why did the Ninth Prince assist the Shen family? Perhaps it was due to a recognition of talent. Observing Shen Wenshao's eyes begin to narrow, Shen Luan hurriedly took a seat beside him. I am unsure. I did visit the Ninth Prince, yet I did not propose any conditions, and he agreed. It must be that he could not bear to see you wronged. If that were truly the case, the Ninth Prince would not have exerted such effort, even dragging concubine Zhan into the fray. As for this, Shen Luan was at a loss. Could it be that the esteemed concubine genuinely admired your calligraphy? I would not find that surprising. Your writing is exquisite, and who would not appreciate it? Shen Luan chuckled foolishly, while Shen Wenshao pressed his lips together. Do you truly not believe you have committed to anything? I swear I have not. Shen Luan feigned innocence, raising her hand and added, I am prudent. Moreover, the Ninth Prince is unlike the Third Prince. He is not one to take advantage of others' misfortunes. Although I have not made any commitments, I shall remember this kindness, and no need. Shen Wenshao leaned back in his chair. I do not require you to remember it for me, brother. Do you mean? This prison ordeal has left a profound impression on me. Such a significant favor must be repaid to His Highness the Third Prince at some opportunity. One must always be grateful. Shen Luan silently lit a candle for His Highness the Third Prince in her heart, thinking, deservedly so. What great ambitions does he still harbor? Bah! In the days following Shen Wenshao's return, the Ninth Prince publicly announced the resolution of the case, restoring Shen Wenshao's innocence. Those who had falsely accused him, driven by jealousy, were discovered by Shen Wenshao in their nefarious deeds and subsequently ousted. Harboring resentment, they secretly fabricated evidence to slander him. Upon uncovering the truth, the Third Prince was deeply pained and personally dealt with the accusers. The Emperor, upon learning of this, bestowed numerous gifts upon the Shen family as consolation. Shen Wenshao's exceptional promotion was thus a blessing in disguise. His rapid ascent was unprecedented in Yin City, making him a figure of considerable renown. However, the Shen family chose to remain discreet. The tumultuous events of the past few months had illuminated the harsh realities of the world. Those who had previously sought various excuses to distance themselves were met with polite refusals from the Shen family. After a brief period of recuperation at home, Shen Wenshao returned to the Hanlin Academy. One day, Shen Luan inadvertently caught sight of Shen Wenshao interacting with the Ninth Prince's associates. She said nothing and quietly withdrew. Her brother had made his choice, albeit earlier than expected, yet it aligned with his past life. With him around, even if the Ninth Prince emerged sooner than anticipated, she believed the Third Prince would not take harsh measures against him. Yuan Shun had recently been feeling increasingly anxious. Aware that Yuan Ling had merely been hiding his talents, he sought to eliminate this obstacle swiftly, hoping to see Yuan Ling falter, which would naturally lead to court officials impeaching him. However, he had not anticipated that the traps he laid would be evaded by Yuan Ling, who even skillfully managed tasks entrusted to him, earning high praise from the emperor. The emperor's growing satisfaction with Yuan Ling meant that he would indeed become a hindrance. Yuan Shun had begun to trust Chao Jin. Several of his assertions had been validated. "Do you have any strategies?" Chao Jin, hands tucked into his sleeves, replied, "Your Highness need not fret. The ninth prince's accomplishments stem largely from Shan Wenshao's guidance. However, it must be noted that the ninth prince currently holds no real power. He is merely currying favor with the emperor. What truly matters lies ahead. Your Highness should focus on the heir of the Guangyang Marquis." "Him? He is still in Beiping with the Guangyang Marquis, and it is uncertain when he will return to the capital. The Guangyang Marquis is the martial arts instructor of the ninth prince, and his heir shares a close bond with him. The Marquis commands a loyal military force, and the emperor entrusts him with military authority. Should this father and son achieve great feats upon their return and pledge allegiance to the ninth prince, it would indeed pose a dilemma for your Highness." Yuan Shen scoffed. "The Guangyang Marquis has remained quite reserved over the years, even offering to return his troops to the emperor on several occasions. I have probed him multiple times, and he shows no interest in the fight for succession. Your Highness, while the Marquis may be indifferent, what of his heir?" Chao Jin raised an eyebrow. "The Guangyang Marquis's heir is quite headstrong. He has often clashed with his father. Should he align himself with the ninth prince, it would spell significant trouble for you. He is merely a reckless youth. What could he possibly achieve?" Chao Jin rolled his eyes at Yuan Shun's arrogance. In the previous life, when Qin Gu had caused such turmoil, he had not held this view. Though young, Qin Gu possessed considerable talent, and Yuan Shun must remain vigilant. That can wait until he returns. By then, it may be too late. Yuan Shun's gaze darkened. "What do you mean?" Chao Jin calculated. Qin Ji's return to Yin City is still several months away. During this time, your Highness must take the initiative. What strategies do you propose? Chao Jin smiled. There are indeed a couple. After leaving the third prince, a smile lingered on Chao Jin's face. Although somewhat unexpected, the situation remained within his control. Before Qin Ji's return, the third prince certainly needed to be cautious. However, the most pressing matter for Chao Jin was Shen Luan. This time, he intended to leverage the third prince to orchestrate a scheme against the Qin family while simultaneously securing his own romantic aspirations, a twofold victory. Indeed, upon returning to the Chao family, the matriarch greeted him with a frown. What bad luck! Look at this. She has barely been married for a short time, yet she falls ill every few days. It is such a hassle to care for her. Chao Jin remained patient. Is Shen Yu unwell again? Who knows if it's genuine? She complains of ailments at the drop of a hat. If she doesn't want to work, she should just say so instead of being so lazy. Inside, Shen Yu overheard her mother-in-law's words and was about to argue when Chao Jin gently interjected. Shen Yu is frail. You should show some compassion. If she is unwell, we must promptly summon a doctor. This expense cannot be spared. Chao matriarch grumbled as she stepped out to fetch a doctor, while Shen Yu coughed a couple of times, feeling a bit more at ease. After a while, Chao Jin returned, his face etched with concern. Feeling unwell again? Why do you not take better care of yourself? If household matters are too taxing, let your mother handle them. Your health is paramount. Shen Yu leaned against him, her complexion pale. That it's nothing, just a bit nauseous. Walking a few steps makes my heart race. She looked up to find Chao Jin gazing down at her. You are simply overwhelmed with worries. I have told you that these difficult days will soon pass. The third prince values me greatly, and everything will be fine. Do not let your thoughts wander. He gently stroked her hair, his gaze fixed on the top of her head, deliberately avoiding the unsightly scar on her face. You must recover quickly. We still have a life to build together. One day, you will bear me several children, and our home will be filled with vitality and warmth. Shen Yu nestled into his embrace, wrapping her arms around his waist. I promise to take care of myself. Indeed, that is how you should behave. Chao Jin's smile was as gentle as flowing water as he placed a soft kiss on her hair, prompting Shen Yu to close her eyes in emotional response. She realized that there was no need for her to constantly oppose Chao Jin. He was the one with whom she would spend her life, and his tender attentiveness was truly commendable. Was it not? Shen Yu yearned to cast aside the matters concerning Shen Luan and the Shen family, aspiring to live a tranquil life. Once her health was restored, she envisioned bearing a few plump and healthy children for Chao Jin, nurturing them with great care. Though she could not become the most distinguished member of the Shen family, perhaps her offspring could achieve that distinction. The more Shen Yu pondered, the more she felt a glimmer of hope for the future. Day by day, she anticipated a swift recovery. She diligently cooperated with the physician's treatments and faithfully consumed the prescribed remedies. Yet, inexplicably, Shen Yu found herself growing weaker with each passing day. Initially, she would feel faint after walking just a few steps. But soon even sitting on the bed left her breathless. Chao Jin's concern for her deepened. He personally brought her bowls of medicine, cooling them before offering them to her lips. "Do not fret. Did the doctor not say? Your constitution has never been robust and recovery takes time. You have improved significantly. In a few more days, you shall gradually regain your strength." Shen Yu accepted the bowl of medicine, diligently sipping the bitter concoction until it was empty. By the way, should we send a message to the Shen family regarding your illness? It was rare for Chao Jin to solicit Shen Yu's opinion. Shen Yu leaned against the bed, taking a moment to respond before nodding. Perhaps this time, Shen Luan would come to visit? Chao Jin smiled. Whether she comes or not matters little. I merely worry that you might feel the need for conversation. Shen Yu gazed at Chao Jin, pondering. Had he truly given up on Shen Luan? Did she no longer hold significance in his eyes? Certainly not. With a smile on his face, Chao Jin turned to dispatch a messenger to the Shen family. Although Shen Luan no longer believed in Shen Yu, she was still her sister, and as an elder sister, how could she remain indifferent in the face of her sister's serious illness? It had been quite a while since he last saw Shen Luan. Upon receiving the letter from the Chao family, Shen Luan initially had no intention of even glancing at it. However, out of sheer boredom, she eventually opened it and scanned its contents. Shen Yu is gravely ill? Doubt flickered in her eyes. Shen Yu had always been sturdier than her, having rarely fallen ill during their time in the Shen household. How could she suddenly be so unwell? Shen Luan decided to inform Zhang Shi of the situation. After a moment's contemplation, Zhang Shi recalled having sent her second aunt to the Chao family for a visit before, merely as a formality. You should go and take a look for me. I wonder if she has changed since her marriage. Shen Luan agreed and instructed her attendants to prepare some medicinal herbs and nourishing supplements before setting off to visit the Chao family. As she approached the Chao residence, Shen Luan felt the weight of the situation. She brought along enough servants to make a grand entrance. Standing at the entrance, she fixated on the modest door for a moment. In Chapter 151, a long-awaited reunion, she inadvertently caught sight of a contract at Jin Shi's place. Realizing that the residence they had occupied in her previous life was not actually owned by the Chao family. How absurd! It was merely a place bestowed upon them by the Shen family. The Chao family had taken advantage of her, living off her resources while consistently looking down upon her, threatening to cast her out with every opportunity. Then Chao Jin would come to soothe her, making her feel as if the fault lay with her. Thus, she gradually bent over backwards, becoming increasingly cautious, diminishing herself to a mere speck of dust. Shen Luan felt suffocated. What a monumental fool she had been in her past life. If the Chao family were truly capable, why did they not cast her out? Did they dare to? Miss, what occupies your thoughts? Ziyin softly called Shen Luan back to reality. Shen Luan shook her head. Nothing. Let us proceed inside. Ziyin quickly supported her, sensing that her expression had been rather alarming moments prior. Her Highness, the county princess has graced us with her presence. Please, come in. The matriarch of the Chao family beamed with delight, her face lighting up like a blooming chrysanthemum, her eyes scanning the luxurious fabric of Shen Luan's attire. This was the image she had always envisioned of a refined young lady, exuding an air of wealth and elegance. Just look at that bracelet on her wrist. The quality was evident, and it certainly did not come cheap. If such a person were her daughter-in-law, perhaps she could adorn herself with that bracelet as well. Shen Luan maintained an air of composure, exuding an undeniable authority, thwarting the matriarch's attempts to draw near. Your Highness, do not find fault. This tea was procured just yesterday. It is quite fresh. Please do indulge. The matriarch instructed her servants to bring forth the tea, yet Ziyin had already set up their own, causing the matriarch to remain unfazed, only feeling that it was fitting for a county princess. Miss Shan. Chao Jin hurried in upon hearing the news, his gaze immediately fixated on Shen Luan. Though their home was dimly lit, Her presence transformed the atmosphere entirely. Shen Luan rose, stating, "I have come to visit his grandmother informed me that my fourth sister is unwell. Is she in a condition to receive visitors?" Shen Yu had just fallen asleep after taking her medicine, but she would not sleep for long. "I shall keep Miss Shen San company until she awakens. I will have someone inform you." Shen Luan had no objections, and Chao Jin exchanged a knowing glance with the matriarch, who gracefully departed. If their son could forge a connection with such a county princess, the Chao family would surely prosper. Chao Jin had made a special effort to present himself well that day, appearing clean and composed, his demeanor exuding an air of refinement that easily garnered affection. "I have heard of Master Shen's affairs and wondered if I might offer some assistance. Regrettably, my influence is limited, yet I firmly believe that Master Shen has been wronged. Thankfully, the truth has emerged, restoring his honor." Chao Jian spoke with a sincerity that struck Shen Luan as she scrutinized him, eager to discern the depth of his audacity. How could he utter such words? Did he possess no sense of shame as a human being? Yet, under Shen Luan's gaze, Chao Jin felt a stirring within, wishing that she would continue to gaze at him, solely him. Master Chao is truly considerate. Shen Luan withdrew her gaze, recalling her brother's words. One should not be angered by the worthless, as it is harmful to one's health. My fourth sister was healthy when she married into the Chao family. How could she suddenly fall gravely ill? Has she consulted a physician? The doctor visits the Chao residence regularly, attributing her condition to excessive worry, likely stemming from previous misfortunes and her emotional turmoil manifesting as illness. Chao Jian sighed softly, urging her not to dwell on it too much. Having married her, I would never disdain her. However, Shen Yu is quite delicate. She often overthinks matters, which has led to her current state. The doctor has been changed several times, and the prescriptions have been tried one after another, yet no improvement has been observed. Seeing his genuine concern, Shen Luan couldn't help but smirk inwardly. With Master Chao's attentive care, how could my fourth sister remain unaware of your intentions? She is quite frail, so I hope you will take extra care of her. Indeed. Shen Luan instructed her attendants to deliver the item she had brought, as it would be inappropriate to visit empty-handed. The medicinal herbs and supplements held little significance for her, yet for the matriarch, they were of great importance. "Oh, Your Highness, you are far too gracious, bringing so many gifts. How could we accept such kindness?" The matriarch's delight was palpable, her smile widening as she feigned reluctance while eagerly directing her servants to store everything away. Shen Luan remained unfazed, while Chao Jin internally pondered how Shen Luan had transformed from the person he once remembered. The current Shen Luan, poised and regal, was unlike any version he had encountered before. "Miss Shen San, how have you been faring?" Shen Luan raised her head and suddenly smiled. "Thank you, Master Chao, for your concern. I am doing very well. Life now is fulfilling and free." Chao Jian was at a loss for how to describe his emotions. Although the present Shen Luan was unfamiliar to him, it was undeniable that she was even more captivating. The brilliance in her eyes was astonishing. The curve of her smile exuded confidence and charm, and every movement radiated an air of untouchable nobility, akin to a rare orchid that drew people in. The more she captivated him, the more he yearned to pull her down from her lofty pedestal, to immerse her in the mundane, making her within reach. In that moment, he would appear, reshaping her into the familiar figure he cherished. How enticing that prospect seemed. "I shall see if my fourth sister has awakened." Shen Luan stood, feeling that whether Shen Yu was awake or not mattered little. She needed to fulfill her grandmother's request to see her in person. Accompanied by Chao Jin, they approached Shen Yu's quarters. As they neared, the unmistakable scent of medicine wafted through the door. Shen Yu suffers from headaches in the wind. Thus, all doors and windows are shut. Chao Jin stepped forward to open the door, and the medicinal aroma intensified. Shen Luan heard a faint groan. "Is my fourth sister awake?" Chao Jin chuckled. "Perhaps she knew you were coming. She woke a bit earlier today." Shen Luan remained noncommittal. Her relationship with Shen Yu had long ceased to be hidden. Would she truly be pleased to see her? Certainly not. Upon entering, the overwhelming scent of bitter medicine filled the air, making one feel uneasy. A young maidservant stood by to attend to Shen Yu. Quickly stepping aside upon their arrival, Chao Jian gently helped Shen Yu into a sitting position. Yeah, look who has come to see you." Standing a few paces away, Shen Luan was struck with shock. How had Shen Yu changed so drastically? Shen Luan had always known that Shen Yu harbored lofty aspirations, yet that was partly due to her possessing some measure of worth. After all, their mother had garnered attention for her beauty, which was why Shen Yuan had taken notice of her. Shen Yu had not been married for long. How could she now appear so skeletal? The scar on her face was no longer frightening. Rather, her entire being evoked a sense of dread. Shen Yu's eyelids drooped as she heard Chao Jin's voice and slowly opened her eyes. For a fleeting moment, a glimmer shone in her hazy gaze as it settled upon Shen Luan, only to fade into darkness once more. It is indeed Sanjia. How long it has been since we last met. Shen Luan brushed her bony hand over her back, wondering how fourth sister had fallen so gravely ill. What did the doctor say? Chao Jin, with a heart full of compassion, embraced Shen Yu, stating that the doctor advised her to rest more, and she would gradually recover. Shen Yu appeared listless and dazed. Her demeanor towards Shen Luan no longer confrontational as it had been in the past, seemingly dependent on Chao Jin. Shen Luan felt an inexplicable chill rise within her, particularly when Chao Jin brought over a bowl of medicine to feed Shen Yu. The coldness surged to her very core. This scene felt hauntingly familiar. On that fateful day, Chao Jin had similarly fed her a bowl of dark concoction, which ultimately led to her demise. Yet the Chao Jin before her now seemed exceedingly considerate, unconcerned about Shen Luan's presence as she gently coaxed Shen Yu to drink the medicine, carefully wiping away the remnants that dribbled from her lips. Occasionally, Shen Yu's gaze towards Chao Jin was laced with an unspoken affection. It has been long since I last saw fourth sister, and I have some heartfelt words to share with her. Might it be convenient for Lord Chao? Chao Jin paused for a moment, then nodded, indicating that she would wait outside, and if there was anything needed, Miss Shun-san could call for her at any time. Thank you, Lord Chao. Shen Luan offered a slight bow and exchanged a knowing glance with Xian. Xian stepped outside, closing the door behind her, standing guard to prevent anyone from approaching. Inside the room, Shen Luan took a seat by the bed. Fourth sister had always cherished her health, yet now she lay gravely ill. Could it truly be that she was unable to adapt to the life of a married woman? Shen Yu gasped for breath as she looked at her. What do you wish to say? Nothing much, merely that fourth sister seems different from before. Shen Yu chuckled coldly. There is no need for your mockery. I am fully aware that I can no longer compare to you. I have no desire to compete. I shall live my life, and you shall live yours, with no interference between us. Shen Luan sighed inwardly. If only she had realized this sooner. How long had it been since fourth sister had gazed into a mirror? Shen Yu lifted her head, her deeply sunken eyes fixed on Shen Luan. What do you mean? Surely fourth sister must be unaware of her current state. Ordinarily, your constitution is far better than mine. Even if you were to catch a chill or be troubled by worries, it should not have escalated to such severity. How could it be that you are bedridden? Shen Luan tilted her head, completely bewildered. Fourth sister's illness struck her as peculiar. Humans consume grains and legumes. Who is free from illness? Indeed, who is free from illness? Life is fraught with aging, sickness, and death. No one can escape it, provided there is no malicious intent behind it. Shen Yu's gaze grew vacant, while Shen Luan busied herself with the pouch in her hands. A few days ago, my brother recounted a story to me about a case shrouded in mystery, where no clues could be found. You know how it was ultimately resolved? Shen Luan smiled lightly. Brother said, one ought to consider who stands to gain the most from the situation. That person becomes the most suspicious. What do you think, fourth sister? Shen Yu could no longer hold on. Conversing with Shen Luan was already a considerable feat, as she drifted in and out of consciousness, nearly unable to distinguish day from night. Chapter 152. Knowing too much very well, I shall not trouble you further as you recuperate. I must take my leave. Shen Luan rose, only to suddenly see Shen Yu struggling to prop herself up, her murky eyes wide open. Third sister, if one day I were to be harmed, would you seek vengeance for me? What are you talking about? Fourth sister. What harm? Would you? Shen Luan smiled gently at her and turned to exit the room. Chao Jin approached her immediately asking, have you finished speaking? Shen Yu is unwell. If she said anything unpleasant, please do not take it to heart. Miss Shen-san, of course not. I would never hold a grudge against someone who is ill. Chao Jin scrutinized Shen Luan's expression, and upon seeing her calm demeanor, felt reassured that Shen Yu likely had not said anything untoward. After assessing the situation, Shen Luan returned to the Shen residence. Informing Zhang Shi about Shen Yu's condition, it did not seem promising. She appeared severely emaciated and in poor spirits. Grandmother, should we inform second aunt? Zhang Shi furrowed her brow, What good would it do to inform her? Let us observe for a few more days. If her condition does not improve, we shall bring her back for a while. After all, she is a daughter of the Shen family and cannot be neglected. Shen Luan had no objections, but she had not anticipated that Shen Yu would not last even these few days. After her encounter with Shen Luan, Shen Yu felt inexplicably lost, lying in bed with a vacant expression. Her eyes wide open. Chao Jin continued to shower her with tenderness and care, believing that Shen Yu's malaise stemmed from her own inadequacy compared to Shen Luan. Yeah, once you recover, you too shall shine as brightly as Miss Shen-san. Now, it is time for your medicine. Chao Jin helped Shen Yu sit up, bringing a spoonful of medicine to her lips. However, this time, Shen Yu did not open her mouth. She stared vacantly at the bowl of dark liquid. Her gaze slowly shifting to Chao Jin's affectionate face. I do not wish to take the medicine today. It is too bitter. Would you drink it for me? Chao Jin blinked in surprise, thinking she was merely throwing a tantrum. With a resigned sigh, he replied, How can you get better if you do not take your medicine? I am waiting for you to recover so that you can bear my family as heirs. Come now, be obedient and open your mouth. Shen Yu suddenly blinked her eyes. Will you drink it with me? I have heard that some couples who share a deep bond do just that. You drink this bowl and I will follow suit. But I am not ill. Why would I drink medicine unnecessarily? Then why do you refuse to drink? Chao Jin's gentle smile began to fade. Her spoon returning to the bowl. What is happening? Hasn't everything been well until now? Why are you acting out today? A shiver ran down Shen Yu's spine as she realized that since that day when Chao Jin had shown her exceptional kindness, her health had begun to deteriorate. She looked into Chao Jin's eyes, fear deeply embedded within. If I were to die, it would not affect the Shen family or Shen Luan. However, for the Chao family, it might actually be a fortunate event. I am a concubine. The Shen family would not be overly concerned. The Chao family losing a wife would not hinder Chao Jin from remarrying. The family has summoned doctors for my sake, and everyone in the neighborhood has seen how well the Chao family treats their daughter-in-law. Should I die, who stands to gain the most? The Chao family, Chao Jin. Chao Jin sighed, a hint of regret in his eyes. Why do you think this way? There is not much time left. Why would you not wish to pass on with hope? Wouldn't that be best for everyone? Shen Yu's pupils dilated sharply, her limbs scrambling to distance herself from him. Yet she had long since lost her strength, gasping for breath with even the slightest movement. Chao Jin removed the spoon from the bowl, gripping the rim of the dish, bringing the now-cool concoction closer to Shen Yu. With a gentle tug, Shen Yu collapsed into his lap. I had initially intended to spare you from suffering. After all, we are husband and wife. A day as husband and wife is akin to 100 days of affection. It would have been a fitting end for you. Yet why must you be so perceptive? Chao Jin's hand caressed Shen Yu's hair, exuding boundless tenderness. You know too much, impeding my path. I cannot do otherwise. Each has their fate, and this is yours, so do not blame me. Chao Jin gently grasped Shen Yu's chin, and with little effort, she opened her mouth. If you must blame someone, blame your ill fortune. Look, in your past life, you aided me in acquiring Shen Luan. Yet this time, with your presence, I shall only drift further from her. You must vanish. The now lukewarm concoction tasted even more bitter, spilling from Shen Yu's lips, mingling with her tears of despair and hatred. Once the medicine was administered, Chao Jin meticulously arranged her clothing and helped her lie down. Waves of drowsiness washed over Shen Yu. Chao Jin would not succeed in his plans. Shen Luan knew everything. Even in death, Shen Luan would not allow Chao Jin to fulfill his desires. A few days later, news of Shen Yu's demise reached the Chao family. Gone? Shen Luan furrowed her brow. Just days prior, she had been able to converse with her. How could she have suddenly passed? The Chao family claimed it was sudden and unforeseen. The doctor had not arrived in time, and they urged the young lady to grieve. Shen Luan steadied herself against the table. No, it should not have happened so quickly. Chao Jin would never miss an opportunity to feign deep affection for the sake of others. The only possibility is that Shen Yu discovered something, prompting Chao Jin to take action against her. She informed Zhang Shi about the situation, who remained silent for a long moment before sighing deeply. Have someone prepare for the morning. The Chao family's funeral was quite the spectacle, particularly highlighting Chao Jin's sorrow. Who could encounter him and not remark on his loyalty? Some colleagues offered their condolences, yet Chao Jin appeared as if his soul had been lost, invoking pity from all. Shen Luan followed Jin Shi into the mourning hall, the overwhelming whiteness making her feel as though she had returned to her own funeral. Back then, Chao Jin had displayed the same demeanor. Lost and despondent, evoking sympathy. Madam Shen, Miss Shen, please, accept my condolences. It was my failure to care for Yaya adequately. I ought to have spent more time with her. Chao Jin approached with a mournful expression. And before Jin Shi could utter a word, Shen Luan's cold voice resonated first, affirming the sentiment. Indeed, it is true. However, such words should be directed towards the fourth sister, dear Chao Darren. Nearby, someone interjected, professing that this was not the fault of Chao Darren. For who could deny that he had shown great kindness to Miss Shen Si? With her severe illness, it was he who tended to her needs. Such a man is hard to find elsewhere. Yes, Chao Darren has already endured enough suffering. Shen Luan, however, remained impervious to these remarks, while Chao Jian spoke on her behalf, claiming that her heart ached solely for her sister, thus garnering himself a measure of sympathy. In truth, the loss of a wife is not an insurmountable calamity. In due time, one may remarry. There are instances where the mourning hall has barely been dismantled before a new bride is ushered in. No one deems this inappropriate. The departed have left this world, and life must go on. Domestic matters still require management, and the continuation of lineage cannot be postponed. Shen Luan's eyes stung from the sight of the white drapes, and an overwhelming sorrow enveloped her heart. The world is exceedingly unjust to women, yet few perceive this plight, having resigned themselves to its normalcy. After departing from the Chao residence, Shen Luan's spirits plummeted. Jin Shi assumed her melancholy stemmed from the death of Shen Yu, and thus refrained from probing further, allowing her daughter some solitude. However, after several days of quiet contemplation, Shen Luan arrived at a momentous decision. Mother, if I were to remain unmarried for the rest of my life, would you be ashamed of me? Jin Shi was taken aback, her cup slipping from her grasp and clattering to the floor. What is this, Luan? Have you been so deeply affected by Shen Yu's death? Jin Shi hastily pulled Shen Luan closer, attempting to assuage her fears. In truth, marriage is not so dreadful, just look at me. I find joy in each day, and my life is quite pleasant. But, mother, are you truly happy? Jin Shi paused, rendered speechless by the clarity in Shen Luan's gaze. You are confined to this household, appearing free yet is it truly so? Shen Luan interlaced her fingers with Jin Shi's. Had you not married, perhaps at this very moment, you would be traveling in a place you have longed to visit or encountering a person you genuinely adore, sharing your innermost thoughts. Yet now, you are bound by the title of Madame Shun San, and even the simplest errands require consideration of your identity as Madame Shun San. For the past few nights, sleep had eluded Shen Luan. In the stillness of the night, her eyes wide open, the events of 2 lifetimes played before her, and a profound confusion took root in her mind. Why must one marry? Why must one entrust themselves to another? And if that trust is misplaced, are they doomed to endure a prolonged, unsatisfactory existence? Having narrowly escaped a fiery pit once, only to perish, she had managed to live again. Surely she should be wiser now. Why leap into the abyss once more? Jin Shi, flustered, urged Luan. How can you think this way? While there are indeed drawbacks, marriage is not entirely without merit. Like what? Jin Shi hesitated, struggling to articulate her thoughts. For instance, if you marry someone you love, would you not find happiness? But does that person love me? Once they profess their love, will they not turn their affections elsewhere? Well, that is a possibility. Shen Luan sighed. Mother, you possess vast experience. Is such a scenario of mutual devotion truly common? Jin Shi could not betray her conscience. Indeed, Shen Luan's musings mirrored her own youthful reflections. However, her thoughts were irrelevant. Her family had arranged her marriage. Could she defy them? Regardless of her reluctance, she had wed the unknown third master of the Shen family, subsequently spending the remainder of her life within the confines of the Shen residence. Eventually, she ceased to dwell on the matter. Contemplating was futile, and she molded her sharp edges to conform, gradually merging with societal expectations. Yet now, Shen Luan, with her youthful visage, persistently posed the question, was marriage truly a source of joy? Jin Shi found herself unable to respond. Chapter 153. An opportunity arises because she was unhappy. She sought solace in small pleasures. Otherwise, one might lose their sanity. Shen Luan leaned against Jin Shi's side. I recognize that I am somewhat headstrong, but mother, I am earnest. I harbor no expectations regarding marriage. I yearn to be with you, grandmother, and brother. At least I know you all care for me. They are family. Others may not share that sentiment. Jianshi gently wrapped her arm around Shen Luan's shoulders. If it were possible, I would not wish for your unhappiness. However, Luan, being a woman in this world is exceedingly challenging. If you remain unmarried, in a few years, you will attract curious gazes and unkind gossip. Such remarks can be deeply hurtful. She could not bear for Shen Luan to endure such scrutiny. Often, words can wound more than physical blows. How many women like the Du family matron exist? When others discuss her, it is inevitable that gossip will ensue. Jianshi closed her eyes. As your mother, I only hope you marry someone you love. And who loves you in return. I do not seek a partner of high status. A lower rank would be preferable, so as to avoid complications, allowing you a tranquil life. Shen Luan did not expect to persuade Jianshi in a single conversation. Hearing her mother's words, Shen Luan turned and smiled. Then if I do not meet someone I admire, I shall remain single. Life is long. There will surely be someone who appreciates me. Who could resist our Luan's charm? Shen Luan chuckled. That settles it. Mother is right. Life stretches ahead, and perhaps in time, they will grow accustomed to my solitude. As days passed, the weather began to cool, and baskets of oranges arrived from the estate. Each vibrant and resplendent. Dian handed Shen Luan a hand warmer. Miss, do set your writing aside. Warm your hands instead. Shen Luan cradled the hand warmer, taking her seat by the window, where rain pattered down, droplets cascading from the eaves, stirring her fingers restlessly. Miss, why has no news arrived from Beiping yet? Ziyin pondered aloud. By now, it should have come. Shen Luan pursed her lips. What news ought to arrive? This is not the Guanyang Marquis' estate. Even if there were a letter, it would not reach here. Not necessarily. The Guanyang Marquis' heir has sent letters without fail. What could be causing the delay this time? Shen Luan remained silent, lost in thought as she gazed at the rain. She had replied to 2 letters, though there was little of substance to convey. Yet, once completed, she often marveled at how she managed to fill the pages with trivialities. After sending out the second response, Qin Gu had ceased her correspondence. Was it because she had grown weary? Shen Luan was uncertain. In any case, if there were no letters, then so be it. She had no expectations. Miss Qin has requested your presence. 1 month from now, during the national sacrificial rites, she wishes for you to accompany her to the temple for the vegetarian feast, as in previous years. Yes, the same as always. As the year drew to a close, the ladies of the nobility, those of Marquis rank and above, were obliged to visit the temple to pray for blessings and partake in the vegetarian feast. Each year, Qin Shu would invite Shen Luan to join her, claiming that she found solitude too dull and that Shen Luan's company made the time pass swiftly. Another year had come to pass. Shen Luan stared blankly at the falling rain, feeling as though, in her past life, half a year from now, Qin Gu would return, rising swiftly to prominence and becoming the most distinguished individual in Yin City. Chao Jin had grown quite familiar with the workings of Yuan Shan's domain. Though Yuan Shan remained wary of him, it did not impede his reliance on Chao Jin, for the latter had indeed accomplished several tasks that prevented Shen Wen Shao from outshining him. You mentioned an opportunity is upon us? Chao Jin bowed respectfully. Indeed, the upcoming national sacrificial rites present the finest opportunity. I implore the third prince not to let it slip by. I have arranged for all necessary personnel. But are you certain this will be beneficial for me? I assure you, it will be, Chao Jin replied with unwavering conviction. The Guanyang Marquis is expected to return in about 6 months. Your Highness need not harbor doubts. They will undoubtedly achieve merit. Currently, you find yourself in a tense standoff with the 9th prince. Should the Guanyang Marquis' heir align with him, it would be most detrimental for you. Thus, it is imperative to sever such potential ties beforehand and bring the Guanyang Marquis' estate under your influence. Yuan Shan's expression remained stoic, easier said than done. Do you truly believe the Guanyang Marquis' estate will comply so readily? Chao Jin chuckled. Your Highness, both the Guanyang Marquis and Qin Gu are absent from Yin City. Tell me, if something were to befall Qin Shu, who would hold sway in the household? The Guanyang Marquis' wife is merely a woman. For the sake of her daughter's reputation, she would certainly wish to downplay any scandal. Would your Highness not achieve your desires? Once the Guanyang Marquis and his son return, you would have successfully married Qin Shu. Would they then disregard her well-being and oppose you? Yuan Shen scoffed. Why not? She is merely a woman. Yet the Guanyang Marquis has always favored his daughter, and Qin Guo is protective. They would certainly deliberate carefully, at the very least. They cannot act without consideration in favor of the ninth prince, which would allow us to achieve our objective. Chao Jin repeatedly emphasized the threat posed by Yuan Ling in front of Yuan Shen. After hearing it once or twice, Yuan Shen grew impatient. Is Yuan Ling truly that formidable? Have you lost your senses? I have the support of the Empress and her family as officials backing me. What does Yuan Ling possess? Zheng Guifei finds herself utterly alone within the palace, devoid of any familial power to support her. What can Yuan Ling possibly contest with me? Chao Jin sighed, never anticipating that this matter would still be broached at this juncture. Your Highness, the ninth prince's advantage lies in the Emperor's favor. Although he may seem weak and isolated, the Emperor dotes upon him. What can your Highness do about it? Father has lost his clarity. The mere thought of the Emperor's satisfaction when faced with Yuan Ling fills Yuan Shen with discomfort. Can Father ensure his safety for a lifetime? Surely, there will come a time when Father is no longer present and Zheng Guifei's true identity will inevitably be exposed. They cannot establish a foothold and are hardly a cause for concern. This is precisely why Yuan Shen has never regarded Yuan Ling as a threat from the very beginning. Chao Jian gazed skyward. Indeed, while Zheng Guifei's status is precarious, the ninth prince is undeniably the Emperor's true son. A legitimate royal. What instability could there be, moreover? Should the ninth prince secure the support of Qin Guo, he would stand firmly, unshaken, while the third prince's arrogance has surpassed all expectations. Chao Jian felt no need to argue further. Your Highness is correct, yet it would be prudent to minimize potential troubles, wouldn't it? I understand. I shall act as you advise. Marrying one or two more poses no difference to me. Chao Jian hastily praised his sagacity, almost betraying a roll of his eyes upon exiting. He recalled that during the national sacrificial rites, Qin Shu would always bring Shen Luan along, thus presenting him with an opportunity. Whether it be Qin Guo, Shao Ran, or the third prince, no matter how they covet, Shen Luan shall ultimately belong to him. That truth shall never alter. Every few days, Shen Luan would venture outside to visit her shop and take a leisurely stroll. The weather had turned unseasonably cold, and as she walked, delicate snowflakes began to fall from the ominous sky. Miss, I shall fetch an umbrella from the carriage. Zian took a few steps back. Shen Luan's head was already sheltered. Master Shao, what a coincidence. Shao Ran held the umbrella over Shen Luan's head, chuckling lightly. It is no coincidence. I came specifically to await you. I feared encountering Master Shen. Shen Luan stifled a laugh. Do not take offense, Master Shao. My brother's temperament can be rather difficult, but he does not harbor any ill will towards you. Shao Ran silently thought to himself, no, he is indeed targeting me. Noticing the slight flush in his hand that held the umbrella, Shen Luan offered him a hand warmer. Here, take this. Keep it warm in your sleeve where no one will see, lest you become the subject of ridicule. Her sweet smile seemed to dispel the gloomy chill, and Shao Ran accepted the warmer, holding it tightly. They found a spot to sit, the thick curtain shielding them from the biting wind, and a servant brought warm tea. Shen Luan touched her face, which felt icy. Miss Shen, you are underdressed. Do take care not to catch a chill. It matters not. I am merely taking a few steps outside. Wearing too many layers feels cumbersome and uncomfortable. Shen Luan looked at him. Master Shao, did you come to see me because you discovered something anew? Regarding the circumstances surrounding Shen Luan's parents' demise, Shao Ran would always share even the slightest developments with her, for which Shen Luan was deeply grateful. Even if these tidbits hardly constituted progress, they indicated that he had not overlooked her concerns, did they not? Indeed, whenever Shao Ran visited the Shen residence, he would encounter Shen Wenshao, and their interactions were far from pleasant. Shen Wenshao never regarded him favorably, and no matter how Shen Luan explained, he suspected Shao Ran harbored ulterior motives towards her. Shen Luan found herself puzzled. How had Shen Wenshao come to such a misunderstanding? Shao Ran was a person of integrity, with lofty aspirations. Could he possibly entertain thoughts of returning to the past? I previously mentioned that when your parents met with misfortune, a significant incident occurred in Ganzhou simultaneously. Do you recall? Shen Luan nodded. You mentioned it was related to the Duke of Dongping. The Duke of Dongping was the son of the late Emperor's kin, stationed in Ganzhou, returning only during festivals to pay respects in Yinqing. However, that year, it seemed he was discovered to be plotting something nefarious, inciting the Emperor's wrath, leading to the Duke's entire clan vanishing. Shen Luan was not well acquainted with this matter. She quietly observed Shao Ran, waiting for him to continue. Few dared to speak of the Duke of Dongping nowadays, as he had been condemned as a traitor, rendering the topic taboo in both Yinqing and the local area. Furthermore, due to the passage of time, it was challenging to uncover any details. However, while investigating your parents' case, I inadvertently discovered that your father appeared to have had some acquaintance with the Duke of Dongping. Is that so? Shen Luan was unimpressed. My father made friends widely. I never anticipated he would have connections in Ganzhou as well. It wasn't a particularly close friendship. Your father and the Duke of Dongping seemingly were never on good terms, having had some friction between them, which many were aware of, making it a rare instance of enmity towards your father. Shen Luan. Chapter 154. May there be no wars under heaven. How splendid! Is there really someone my formidable father could not handle? Yet it is peculiar. Their relationship was far from cordial, and it seems they had contact with the Duke's household before your parents' incident. This leaves me quite baffled. Perhaps they were arguing? Shen Luan felt that Shao Ran's findings still yielded no clear answers. Xian replenished their hot water, but Shao Ran could not articulate a coherent explanation. They sipped their tea, engaging in light conversation, gazing out at the falling snow. This winter promises to be quite frigid. Shen Luan exhaled a gentle plume of white vapor, her gaze fixed on the window. Lost in thought, Shao Ran observed her profile, noting her slightly reddened ears, feeling an impulse to warm her with his hands. In a few days, you will be accompanying Miss Qin to the temple? Master Shao is aware of that too? Quite impressive, Shen Luan laughed. We shall stay for a few days, as is our tradition, praying for the Buddha's protection. I could have accompanied you, but an unexpected task has arisen. However, if you desire my presence, I could easily delegate that responsibility. Shao Ran clenched his fist beneath the table. Should Shen Luan express her wish, he would forsake any obligation to remain by her side. Yet Shen Luan gazed at him with wide eyes, perplexed. Was having a task not a good thing? It indicated that Master Shao bore significant responsibilities, something others could only envy. Is it not? Indeed. Shen Luan's eyes sparkled. In Yinqing, Master Shao was a figure of great renown. When I attended banquets, I often overheard many young ladies discussing you. You are quite the catch, Master Shao. Shao Ran regarded her crescent-shaped eyes, took a sip from his cup, only to find the tea had gone cold, leaving a bitter taste in her mind. The thought of being talked about by young ladies was amusing, and she even felt pleased for him, yet she did not feel a hint of discomfort. Shao Ran believed that Shen Luan's demeanor towards him was light-hearted and carefree, without reservation in her laughter. He thought himself to hold some significance in her life, but perhaps he was mistaken. As for the national sacrificial rites, I shall be unable to attend. You must exercise caution and bring additional attendants for safety. Shen Luan nodded earnestly. I understand. Thank you, Master Shao. After parting from Shao Ran, Xian hesitated to speak. Shen Luan watched her for a while. What weighs on your mind that requires so much deliberation? Miss, I believe the second young master is correct. What do you mean by that? Shen Luan queried, perplexed. Xian pouted. Master Shao, do you not sense that his gaze upon you is somewhat different? Shen Luan reflected for a moment, then candidly replied, not at all. He looks at everyone that way. She shook her head in exasperation. What was the girl thinking? Her encounters with Master Shao were strictly for business, and did Xian not see how popular he was? He and her brother were alike. Proud in essence. Why would he have any thoughts towards someone who had been jilted? Do not entertain such notions. Xian thought Shen Luan's reasoning quite sound. Indeed, if Master Shao truly developed feelings for a girl, would he not fear being the subject of mockery? Yet, she felt that when Master Shao was with Shen Luan, his eyes shone with an unusual light. Could it be that she was merely overthinking? Shen Luan had not attended the national sacrificial rites just once or twice. Preparations were generally in order, and Jian Shi came to remind her, do not neglect your well-being. I have sent some snacks for you. If the vegetarian dishes do not suit your palate, you need not force yourself. Be sure to dress warmly. The conditions outside are far from those at home, and I shall await your return. Shen Luan smiled and nodded, reassuring her mother, do not worry, I shall be with Shu Shu. We have been doing this for years and are well accustomed to it. That is good to hear. I cannot shake this feeling of unease these past few days. Jian Shi held Shen Luan for a long while before finally letting go, watching her depart in the carriage. She hoped for a smooth journey as the day grew ever colder. Shen Luan soon met with Qin Shu. The two young ladies, together, could chatter endlessly, dispelling the chill of the outside world. I have never looked forward to the national sacrificial rites as much as I do now. The house has grown increasingly desolate, with no news from father or brother, and mother lost in her thoughts. Third brother is almost at his wit's end. Alas, I can only hope the days pass swiftly. Qin Shu leaned against Shen Luan's shoulder, whispering her grievances. Shen Luan paused momentarily. Has there been no news from Beiping? None, Qin Shu replied. Logically, it should have arrived by now, yet we have received nothing. Mother is exceedingly anxious, urging third brother to send a letter to inquire, but there has been no word as of yet. Suddenly, Qin Shu straightened. Luan, do you think something has happened? No, certainly not. Shen Luan shook her head without a moment's thought. There must be some delay. After all, didn't we already discuss this? Perhaps by the time we return, the letter will have arrived. Don't dwell on it. Qin Shu felt somewhat consoled, wrapping her arms around Shen Luan and murmuring, What would I do without you? I feel so much better now. The temple they intended to visit for blessings was somewhat distant, and the closer temples were frequented by the female relatives of nobility. Thus, they were compelled to journey a bit farther. Although the road was slightly tedious, for young ladies of their age, the prospect of venturing out was indeed an exciting affair. They even spent a night at an inn along the way, insisting on sharing a room, chatting together as they lay side by side. Their servants had long since grown accustomed to their arrangement, efficiently organizing a watch schedule for the night, allowing for a relaxed atmosphere. The following day, they arrived at the temple just before dusk. The weather was quite cold. Recent rains had caused patches of ice to form on the ground. The young ladies tread carefully, mindful of their steps on the rugged mountain path. Yet, it was precisely this challenge that showcased their sincerity. A young monk with a bright voice guided them up the mountain to the temple. Shen Luan and Qin Shu supported each other, taking cautious steps until they safely reached the temple. Accommodations had been prepared for them, and both changed into simple garments, readying themselves for the ritual of worship. In truth, the act of praying for blessings was neither particularly difficult nor particularly engaging. They arose early, followed the monks for morning prayers, partook in meals, engaged in meditation, had lunch, enjoyed a brief respite in the afternoon, and before dinner, listened to a venerable monk speak on Zen. Those earnest in their devotion might recite scriptures until bedtime or use the time to transcribe sacred texts. Qin Shu, with her lively disposition, would likely find it unbearable without Shen Luan's company. Yet with Shen Luan by her side, she was able to cultivate a sense of tranquility, even joining her in transcribing scriptures, as if Shen Luan radiated a calming aura. However, they were not always together. On the afternoon of the third day, unable to sleep, Shen Luan noticed Qin Shu still resting and decided to wander alone. The temple echoed with the deep sound of a bell, its resonance seeming to come from the very heavens. The fragrant sandalwood incense wafted gently, guiding her into the main hall. At that moment, the hall was empty, the incense burner releasing tendrils of pale blue smoke that slowly dissipated. Shen Luan stood before the immense statue of the Buddha, his eyes half closed, as if unwilling to witness the world's sorrows, yet exuding boundless compassion. All thoughts fled from Shen Luan's mind as she approached, kneeling on the mat before the Buddha, her hands pressed together, gently closing her eyes. In the past, she had expressed gratitude, acknowledging the opportunity for revenge granted by the heavens, vowing not to squander it and ensuring her enemies paid 1,000-fold for their transgressions. Yet, the death of Shun Yu brought her no satisfaction, only a sense of bewilderment. She bore no sympathy for Shun Yu, for her fate was of her own making, a consequence of her own actions, unrelated to others. Even without Chao Jin's intervention, Shun Yu would have plotted against her elsewhere. Shen Luan felt no need for pity. However, she suddenly realized that beyond revenge, she seemed to possess no other aspirations. What would follow after she made Chao Jin pay the price? As time stretched endlessly before her, what would sustain her through it? How could she avoid squandering this precious span of life? Buddha above, should this humble girl have her wishes fulfilled, I pledge to dedicate my life to virtuous deeds and gratitude for the heavens' benevolence. Shen Luan bowed deeply on the mat, wishing to utilize her blessings to pray for the common people, to lend her meager strength to those she could assist. May there be no wars in the world, and may all live in peace and prosperity. May Duke Guangyang and Qin Gu return safely. Gradually opening her eyes, she beheld the Buddha still embodying the compassion that transcends all beings, both merciful and indifferent. After lighting several sticks of incense, she slowly exited the main hall. the distant bell tolling a mournful yet profound melody. The national mourning ceremony typically lasted 7 days, a span of time filled with solemnity, wherein laughter and loud conversations were strictly prohibited, nearly suffocating Qin Shu with its constraints. As the time drew near, she could hardly contain her eagerness to return. I miss home so much. Mother must have prepared my favorite dishes. Luan, look, I might just drool. Shen Luan laughed heartily, playfully propping up her chin. Where? Let me see. The servants swiftly packed their belongings, but just as they were about to depart, a young servant from the Shen household rushed over with news. The carriage had broken down. It was perfectly fine yesterday, I just checked, and the right wheel has a problem. It may take another half day to fix. Qin Shu's excitement immediately waned. Half a day? Then we can't leave this afternoon. Otherwise, we won't reach the inn by nightfall. Shen Luan, however, remained unfazed. The days there were not particularly arduous for her, allowing her mind to settle. Shu, you should return first. I will stay at the temple for 1 more day. But how can that be? How could I leave you here alone? You came to accompany me. How can I leave first? Chapter 155. It is me without a second thought. Qin Shu rejected the idea. Shen Luan smiled. If we stick to our planned return date, they will inevitably worry if they don't see anyone at home. You should go back first and inform them, so they won't be anxious. But it's just 1 more day. It's nothing. Can you bear to let your mother's efforts in preparing your favorite dishes go to waste? After much persuasion, Shen Luan finally convinced Qin Shu, who reluctantly agreed to leave first. The other ladies who had come with them gradually departed, leaving the temple quieter, with only the occasional sighting of monks in their thick robes. Shen Luan remained unhurried, continuing her routine of transcribing the scriptures she had yet to complete. The next day, the carriage was repaired, and Ziyin directed the servants to load their belongings onto the carriage before helping Shen Luan aboard. We'll be home tomorrow. The madam must be longing for you and has certainly prepared your favorite dishes. Yin was also quite happy, feeling that the young lady had endured too much simplicity these past few days, which seemed a bit unfair. Shen Luan leaned against the carriage wall. I miss mother too, but the national mourning ceremony holds great significance, preventing one from becoming restless. Yin felt her young lady was already composed and steady enough. If she became any more so, she might ascend to immortality. As the carriage traveled partway, the driver suddenly slowed down sharply. Shen Luan steadied herself against the wall. What's the matter? Miss, there's a person lying on the ground ahead. Judging by their attire, it seems, what seems? Ziyin lifted the curtain to take a look, her face turning ashen. Miss, that appears to be Qin Mrs. Clothing. What did you say? Shen Luan gasped, pushing aside the curtain and leaping down. In the distance, she saw a figure sprawled on the ground, donned in a pale camellia-colored coat, exactly like what Qin Shu wore when she left. Shen Luan's blood ran cold. She rushed forward without a second thought, with Ziyin calling out in alarm behind her. The biting wind chilled Shen Luan's ears, and her heart raced with dread. Why was Qin Shu here? Why was she lying alone by the roadside? Where were the servants of the Qin family? Where was the carriage? It wasn't far from the temple. Qin Shu had departed just the previous morning. If something had truly occurred, why had no one returned to inform her? Shen Luan's steps faltered. Something was amiss. The clothing was indeed familiar, but the feet protruding from the coat could not belong to Shu. No. A dreadful realization surged through her mind, and instinctively she began to run back toward the carriage. But it was too late. The figure on the ground suddenly stirred, and just as Shen Luan managed, my dear girl, alert the authorities, hasten to report it. Shen Luan was jostled on the horse's back to the point of nausea, grateful that she had consumed little that morning. The rough saddle pressed painfully against her ribs, and the biting cold numbed one side of her face. After what felt like an eternity, the horse finally came to a halt. The man dismounted, seized Shen Luan, and blindfolded her with a strip of cloth. You are quite peculiar, little girl. In the face of such circumstances, you remain silent and composed. It is rather dull. Shen Luan, suppressing her discomfort, retorted, if I were to cry out, would you set me free? Of course not, but it would bring me some amusement. Shen Luan's hair stood on end as he shoved her forward, then pushed her to the ground. She curled into a ball, demanding, what do you intend to do? Do not be alarmed. I shall not harm you, but others may have their designs, and that is not my concern. A creaking door signaled the man's departure. Cautiously, Shen Luan reached out, feeling the icy ground beneath her. She discovered some dry straw, realizing she was confined in a small, cramped space. Who could wish her harm? Several possibilities flickered through her mind. Chao Jian? The third prince? Or perhaps an enemy of the Shen family? What did they want with her? To use her as leverage against the Shen family. Confusion enveloped Shen Luan as she felt increasingly chilled. Huddling in the corner, clutching her knees, Yin would surely report to the authorities. How long before they found her? In the oppressive darkness, time stretched interminably. Just as she felt herself succumbing to the cold, she heard a sound. The door creaked open, the noise grating against Shen Luan's nerves, causing her teeth to chatter. Under the blindfold, her eyes widened in terror as someone entered. The overwhelming panic in the darkness rendered her unable to control her trembling. Upon feeling a touch, she could no longer suppress her scream of terror. Who are you? What do you want? A hand gripped her arm tightly, like a vice, rendering her immobile. Shen Luan struggled fiercely, contorted in a position that seemed intent on crushing her bones. The warmth of breath brushed against her ear, moist and nauseating, prompting a stream of tears to flow unbidden. The assailant remained silent, clutching her with a force that felt like an expression of rage. Inhaling deeply at her neck, in that moment, Shen Luan feared she would be consumed alive. She evaded every attempt to grasp her, yet her feeble strength paled in comparison to his She felt his hands begin to unfasten her gown. Despair surged within her. Let me go. Release me. Why must she endure such a fate? With every ounce of her strength, she resisted, but her arms were twisted behind her back, immobilizing her. The cloth became soaked with tears, her cheeks chilled by the cold. Shen Luan sensed something slimy slithering across her face, and no matter how she turned, she could not escape it. Would she suffer such a fate for the rest of her life? Shen Luan shut her eyes in agony, fearing she might perish here, with so much left undone. Suddenly, the movement at her neck paused, and the grip around her tightened, almost crushing her delicate wrist. In the next instant, the confinement vanished, and she heard the door creak again. She curled up tightly, rubbing her cheeks against her sleeves, wishing she could shed her skin. Footsteps approached again, each step echoing like a hammer on her heart. Shen Luan emitted a whimper, akin to an injured cub, cursing herself for lacking the ability to defend herself. The creaking sound returned, leaving her mind blank. Thoughts of self-destruction flitted through her mind, yet she wondered what would become of her mother, grandmother, and brother if she were to die. If she perished, everything would end, just as in her previous life. No matter how desperate or hateful, it would be futile, and she would not be graced with another chance. The blindfold at the back of her head was touched, prompting Shen Luan to struggle furiously, kicking and striking, even using her teeth. If she must die, she would take a piece of flesh from this person. It is I, Luan. It is I. The person before her did not flinch. One arm was clamped by Shen Luan's bite, while the other hand reached behind her head to untie the cloth. The outside world was shrouded in darkness, but as Shen Luan squinted at the faint light, she beheld a face that should not be present here. It is all right. It is all right. I apologize for being late. You are safe now. Qinggu enveloped her in his arms, wrapping her in his cloak. Shen Luan exhaled in relief, momentarily unsure if she was dreaming. Had she truly died, only to dream of Qinggu coming to rescue her from miles away? I have sent someone to pursue them. I will escort you back. Tears streamed down Shen Luan's cheeks, unceasing, even as Qinggu tried to wipe them away, his heart aching for her. Upon witnessing Shen Luan, disheveled and curled up in distress, his fury could have incinerated the room. Shen Luan clutched his garment, revealing deep marks on her wrist that made Qingji's eyes redden with rage. Suddenly, the frail figure in his arms lost all strength, prompting Qinggu to tighten his embrace, only then realizing that Shen Luan's forehead was burning. He lifted her effortlessly, swiftly departing from that dreadful place. Shen Luan ached all over, particularly her head, which felt heavy and detached. She could vaguely hear movement nearby, but her eyelids felt too heavy to lift. Half awake, her consciousness floated in a haze. Overwhelmed by terror, afflicted by cold, in need of recuperation, her external wounds were of little consequence. As the noise around her gradually subsided, Shen Luan felt as if her head might split open. Once the physician left, Qinggu returned to Shen Luan's side. Ziyin had changed her clothes and examined her. Apart from the bruises on her wrist, Her palms were cut, and there were shallow knife wounds on her neck. Thankfully, only the skin was breached. Her knees and elbows bore bruises, likely from falls. Throughout it all, Ziyin had wept incessantly, tending to Shen Luan's needs without neglecting a single detail. Now, she had gone to prepare medicine for Shen Luan, finally allowing some peace. The physician diagnosed that Shen Luan had suffered from the cold and immense shock, with a malevolent force invading her body, fierce and relentless. Her cheeks flushed with an unnatural red, yet her lips appeared pale and wan. Beneath the covers, her body trembled slightly, as if chilled to the bone. Qin Gu touched her hand, which felt icy, as though no amount of blankets could impart warmth. Chapter 156. My lucky star. Shen Luan curled up tighter. Qin Gu pondered for a moment before shedding his outer garment, leaving only a thin layer beneath, and then cradled Shen Luan, blankets and all, into his embrace. Her cheek pressed against his chest, the warmth beckoning her to cling to him, her arms wrapping around him, her face nuzzling against him. Oh, not move. Qin Gu restrained Shen Luan's restless movements, ensuring the blankets enveloped her snugly, as if he held a large silkworm. When Ziyin entered, she was taken aback, rendered speechless for a long moment. Although aware that Qin Gu was merely warming her, it was quite a sight. The medicine? Place it here. I will feed it to her shortly. How can I trouble the air? Allow me to do it. There is no need. Ziyin. What does no need mean? He spoke so effortlessly. But who could argue when he was the savior of her young lady? Ziyin gritted her teeth, resigning herself to let the medicine cool before urging Shen Luan to drink it for better efficacy. You two have been startled. Go rest, I will remain here. Though Ziyin felt reluctant, she could not best Qin Gu. So she left with a frown. Shen Luan settled into Qin Ji's embrace, seemingly more comfortable, her cheek resting against his chest as she fell into a deep slumber. However, whenever Qin Gu attempted to pull her away, she would frown, but as soon as he released her, she would burrow back into him, seeking a comfortable position. How could he administer medicine under such circumstances? Qin Gu was troubled, watching the medicine cool down. With a resolute heart, he took a sip himself. When Ziyin returned to tidy up, she found the bowl empty and breathed a sigh of relief. My lord, I shall keep watch over Miss Shen. Surely, they could not allow the heir of Guangyang Marquis to hold her all night. Qin Gu shook his head. It is no trouble. She finds comfort this way. Indeed, he was like a human heater. And given that Qin Gu was warmer than most, who wouldn't feel at ease in this frigid winter? After much deliberation, Ziyin concluded that her young lady seemed to be benefiting from it. After all, come dawn, no one would be the wiser. Thus, she refrained from further persuasion, departing but not before noticing a faint brown stain at the corner of Qin Ji's mouth. Surely that could not be remnants of the medicine? The following day, when Shen Luan finally managed to open her eyes, she felt disoriented. Clearly, she was not resting on a pillow. No pillow could be this warm. Awake? Do you still feel unwell? A gentle vibration beneath her cheek roused Shen Luan from her stupor. She raised her head to find Qin Ji's enlarged face before her. For a moment, she was taken aback, then suddenly realized and rolled over in her blankets. Qin Gu stood. I will call Ziyin in shortly. Please allow the physician to examine you again. He exited swiftly, leaving Shen Luan buried in her blankets, her mind racing with a singular thought. Was it truly Qin Gu? She had not brushed her hair or washed her face and had appeared before him just like this? Was the heavens playing tricks on her? Young lady, woe is me. Ziyin entered, crying inconsolably before Shen Luan, prompting her to gradually recall the events that had transpired. Thankfully, the heir of Guangyang Marquis appeared just in time. Otherwise, who knew what might have happened? As Ziyin cried and assisted Shen Luan with her grooming, she brought warm water and hot porridge, feeding her a bit. How did Brother Qin end up here? I am uncertain as well. I did not have the chance to inquire. When the young lady was brought back by the heir yesterday, it frightened me terribly. She was alternately hot and cold. Unable to find a moment's peace in her slumber, Shen Luan's head throbbed. Was this the reason she awoke in Qin Ji's embrace? As for yesterday's events, I know no one else will be privy to them. Yet I must express my gratitude to the heir, to ensure the young lady's restful sleep. He remained motionless throughout the night, without even donning an outer garment. Fortunately, he possesses a robust constitution. Shen Luan hazily gazed at the back of her hand. Had Qin Gu truly cared for her all night? Once she had composed herself, Qin Gu re-entered, accompanied by an elderly physician. After examining Shen Luan, the doctor prescribed another remedy. The fever had subsided, yet it was prone to recurrence. She must continue her medication, avoid excessive movement, and rest quietly to prevent further chills. Xian nodded in agreement and followed the doctor out to fetch the medicine. Qin Gu took a seat by Shen Luan's bedside, causing her hand beneath the covers to tighten gradually. They had failed to apprehend the assailant, allowing him to escape. Shen Luan's complexion paled instantly, as unwelcome memories surged uncontrollably into her mind. I shall have my people continue the pursuit. There must be some leads, and such an incident shall not occur again. A feeling of discomfort settled in Shen Luan's chest, a nauseating sensation akin to cotton, stifling her breath. Qin Gu was likely the one most eager to capture the villain. He could personally dismantle that scoundrel's bones, piece by piece. Qin Gu, what brings you here? Shen Luan did not wish to dwell on her recollections. She recalled that Qin Gu was not due back in Yin City for another 6 months. Qin Gu regarded her, stating that matters had progressed smoothly, prompting his early return. He had intended to escort her and Shu Shu, yet unexpected circumstances had arisen. Oh, Shu Shu. Shen Luan's eyes widened in alarm. Where is she? The person who attacked me was wearing Shu Shu's clothes. Is she unharmed? Do not be agitated. Have you forgotten what the doctor just said? She is fine. Qin Gu had set out with Yuan Ling and, unexpectedly, encountered Qin Shu Shu along the way, just as she was confronted by horse bandits. This was quite the predicament. Horse bandits had appeared near Yin City, a blatant affront to imperial authority. Yuan Ling was furious at the time, while Qin Shu Shu revealed that the bandits had stolen her soiled garments. What manner of bandits would engage in such nonsensical actions? What use could Qin Shu Shu's clothing serve? Qin Gu hastily made his way toward the temple, realizing that Shen Luan had indeed encountered trouble. These individuals were scheming, having stolen Shu Shu's clothing to target you. She is safe with Yuan Ling. Upon finishing his statement, Qin Gu noticed Shen Luan's gaze fixated on his arm, where a wound had been treated but left uncovered. Is this from my own bite? Shen Luan gasped, horrified at the thought of having bitten herself so fiercely in a moment of madness. She nearly took a chunk of flesh. It's nothing, just a minor injury. Qin Gu chuckled, intending to withdraw his arm to avoid alarming her further. Shen Luan grasped it, pulling it closer. How can this be merely a minor injury? A scrape on my palm causes me immense pain. What of your injury? Thank you. Had it not been for you arriving in time, my life would likely have been forfeit. Truly, you are my guardian angel. In her past life, it was Qin Gu who aided her, slaying the despicable Chao Jin when she was powerless after her demise. Is that so? It is truly my honor. Qin Ji's gaze bore into hers with intensity. After a moment, he softly remarked, I am relieved you are unharmed. A wave of warmth surged through Shen Luan, spreading outwards, leaving her momentarily speechless. Miss, the second young master has arrived. Just as Xian's voice echoed from outside, the door swung open, revealing Shen Wan Shao, radiating an aura of coldness as he strode in. Brother, what brings you here? Shen Luan exclaimed, her eyes lighting up, though she hesitated to approach due to the chill emanating from him. Yet, she could not ignore the alarming bruises on her neck and wrist. Did you apprehend the assailant? Qin Gu rose, he escaped. We are still investigating. Once you discover his identity, please inform me. Shen Wan Shao, a mere scholar, exuded a murderous intent. Who dares to harm my sister? Seeing that Shen Luan was unharmed, he exchanged glances with Qin Gu before stepping outside to converse. Xian cautiously withdrew her head and gently closed the door. The second young master was somewhat intimidating. One could only speculate what he might discuss with the heir of Guangyang Marquis. Shen Luan did not dare to guess it was her first time witnessing her brother's formidable demeanor, and it was indeed quite fearsome. Outside, Shen Wan Shao maintained a stern countenance but first expressed his gratitude to Qin Gu. I have already heard. Had you not saved Luan, the consequences would have been dire. A fierce glint flashed in Shen Wan Shao's eyes, which he struggled to suppress. This time, the Shen family owes you a debt. Should the opportunity arise in the future, there is no need for that. I do not wish to be indebted to Shen Luan. Saving her was merely the right thing to do. Shen Wan Shao scrutinized Qin Gu, who met his gaze unwaveringly. Thus, you need not fear that I will use this act of kindness to coerce her. I have no interest in such tactics. Oh? What do you intend to coerce her into? Qin Gu chuckled lightly, Master Shen, are you truly so astute as to not perceive my intentions? I do not understand. I have feelings for Shen Luan. Shen Shao cursed under his breath. How brazen of this man to declare his affection for his sister in front of him. Did he not comprehend the meaning of subtlety? Luan is still quite young. I am aware, and I am not in a hurry. Shen Shao scrutinized him for a moment and coolly replied. I believe the heir should be the one in a hurry. Even if you are not, the Marquis of Guangyang and his wife certainly will be. I possess means to assuage their concerns. If I cannot persuade my own parents, I would not disclose this matter. Shen Shao silently rolled his eyes. In this regard, Qin Ge was indeed superior to Shao Ran, who could not even manage his own mother yet claimed to be infatuated with Luan. Was his mind unhinged? In any case, the Shen family will remember this. I shall take Luan with me for now. There is no need for the heir to worry. Oh, that may not be possible. Qin Ji's tone remained gentle. The doctor has advised that Shen Luan should not be moved at this time. She had a high fever last night. Though she is somewhat improved today, she remains susceptible to relapse. She requires ample rest. You understand, Brother Shen, that high fevers can be perilous. I trust you would not wish to place Shen Luan at risk. Naturally, Shen Shao did not wish to, but he could not remain away for too long. Qin Ge sensed this and continued in a softer tone, rest assured. I am here to ensure Shen Luan's safe return to the Shen residence. Shen Shao experienced a rare moment of defeat. Yet it seemed he had little choice in the matter. Then, I shall trouble the heir. It is my pleasure. Shen Luan noticed a subtle change in her brother's demeanor upon his return. Chapter 157. I will accompany you, brother. Has mother and grandmother been informed? Not yet. I fear it would be too much for grandmother to bear. Shen Luan sighed in relief. Then let us keep this from them for now to spare them worry. Just say, I am staying with Shu for a few days and shall return shortly. That may be difficult to conceal. Miss Qin has also encountered some trouble. Do not concern yourself with that. I will handle it. You focus on your recovery. Shen Shao tucked the covers around Shen Luan and gently touched her forehead, still warm to the touch. This matter will not simply fade away. It must have frightened you. Now seeing her family, Shen Luan felt reassured. Brother, everything is fine now. She could see the lingering fear in Shen Shao's eyes. This incident must have caused him considerable worry. Yes, all is well. Shen Shao had to return home, but before leaving, he wore a serious expression. Although Qin Ge saved you, our family does not condone the notion of exchanging favors. If he disrespects you in any way, return and inform me. I will ensure his merits come to naught. Shen Luan shivered at her brother's fierce demeanor, then blushed as she realized what he was implying. Brother, what do you mean by exchanging favors? You always tell me not to read those novels, yet you seem well informed yourself. Shen Shao shot her a glare. Upon hearing her obedient response, he hurriedly departed. As soon as he left, Qin Ge re-entered. Noticing the faint blush on her cheeks, without hesitation, he reached out to touch her forehead. Shen Luan froze at the warmth enveloping her brow. Qin Ge lingered for a moment before withdrawing his hand. Fortunately, it seems you are not feverish again. Have you taken your medicine? Shen Luan leaned back, awkwardly pulling the covers tighter. Yes, I have. Is it too bitter? I will send someone out to see if I can procure some sweets or plums that you enjoy. Next time, you can have a reward after taking your medicine. Qin Ge conversed with her as if he were comforting a child. During his time in Beiping, the most anticipated moments were the letters from Yin City. He often wondered if she would write to him, yet he had waited several times without receiving any. Qin Ge sounded somewhat aggrieved. Shen Luan opened her mouth. During that time, she had not known what to write. However, she had finally received his letter, which she read countless times. Whenever she felt lonely and weary in Beiping, she would take it out to read, and it would somehow ease her heart. Shen Luan felt a warmth radiating from her ears. Why did he say such things? I have written nothing, and your words seem overly exaggerated. Not at all. Those 2 letters made me yearn to return to Yin City sooner, even if only a day earlier. However, what ultimately spurred Qin Ge to hasten his pace was Shen Shao's predicament. Not a single word of this was mentioned in Shen Luan's letters. Qin Ge learned of it from Qin Shu. He was filled with regret, wondering why he was not by her side at such a critical moment. Yuan Ling's letter also hinted that the troubles besetting the Shen family were instigated by Yuan Shen, who sought to use Shen Shao to tempt Shen Luan. At that moment, Qin Ge wished he could sprout wings and fly back to Yin City. He could hardly endure the wait, completely focused on swiftly concluding the cleanup work. He needed to return urgently. Shen Luan's ears were a lovely shade of red, almost translucent, as if a mere poke could draw blood. Returning was quite good, yes. Fortunately, I returned early. Such is fate. It is destined that I must protect Shen Luan. However, you are now a county princess, and I have yet to pay my respects properly. Qin Gu pretended to rise, but Shen Luan, in a flurry, pulled him back. What are you doing? What county princess? It's merely a title. Her urgency led her to accidentally grasp the injured spot on his arm, causing Qin Gu to frown slightly. Shen Luan quickly released her grip, apologizing profusely that I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. She gently cradled his arm, examining it with a face full of remorse. Qin Gu lowered his head, observing her delicate, pale fingers touching his slightly darker skin. The contrast strikingly apparent. It seemed she was hesitant to apply pressure. Her movements exceedingly gentle, sending delightful tingles through Qin Gu. After a while, Shao Wu entered, overhearing Shen Luan requesting him to check on Qin Ji's injuries. He rolled his eyes internally. The young master was at it again. Pretending. When injured by the enemy's blade in Beiping, the young master hadn't even flinched, yet now, a mere touch from Miss Shen made him gasp in restraint. Such acting. If only that talent were devoted to Miss Shen. Shen Luan could not move for the time being and decided to rest quietly in place. Qin Gu stayed with her, casually brushing off the summons from the palace, intending to address everything after he saw Shen Luan safely home. Shen Luan felt her condition was quite stable, especially during the day, appearing no longer concerning. But once night fell, sleep eluded her. Whenever she closed her eyes, a suffocating sensation crawled up her bones, a sticky, nauseating touch that seemed inescapable, clinging to her like a shadow. Shen Luan had attempted numerous times to sleep, only to awaken in a drenched panic, her failures evident. She could only lie awake, staring at the ceiling until dawn. Her deteriorating state was easily noticeable. Already unwell, she could not rest properly, and her spirit waned further. Upon noticing, Ziyin discreetly spoke with the doctor, who added calming herbs to the prescription. She stayed by Shen Luan's side throughout the night. Yet even then, Shen Luan could only manage brief moments of shallow sleep, jolting awake in a cold sweat. What to do? Ziyin was nearly in tears, watching Shen Luan grow increasingly frail, the dark circles under her eyes deepening. Yet feeling utterly powerless, with no other options, she sought out Qin Gu. After some contemplation, Qin Gu proposed, I will keep her company tonight. Ziyin hesitated. This doesn't seem right, does it? Qin Gu replied calmly, let us try it. You can watch from outside. I won't do anything to your young lady. If this continues, her condition may worsen, and it will be too late then. Concerned for Shen Luan's health, Ziyin deliberated before reluctantly agreeing. But she would remain just outside the door. As evening fell, the sky darkened, and Shen Luan's anxiety began to mount. She did not wish for it, yet she found herself particularly fearful of the dark. Terrified of closing her eyes, as if something dreadful lurked within the shadows, ready to pounce. Qin Gu entered with a bowl of congee and side dishes, setting them on a small table beside her bed. Are you hungry? Eat first, then take your medicine afterward. The dishes were freshly made by a nearby eatery and approved by the doctor. Give it a try. Shen Luan glanced behind him. Where is Ziyin? How could I trouble Brother Qin with these tasks? She is preparing your medicine. She insists on handling everything herself, a truly loyal servant. Qin Gu scooped a spoonful of congee, naturally holding the spoon to Shen Luan's lips. She instinctively opened her mouth, only realizing too late. Her eyes wide with alarm. I can do it myself. She snatched the spoon from him, pouting slightly, recalling how Qin Gu had just fed her. It was rather embarrassing. After all, she was not a child. Nevertheless, Qin Gu did not leave, sitting beside her as she obediently finished the entire bowl of congee. He then handed her a warm, damp cloth, clearing away the small table afterward. Shen Luan leaned against the headboard, the room illuminated by bright candles, while the outside world had succumbed to darkness. Was it raining outside? Shen Luan heard the faint patter of raindrops. Qin Gu nodded. It just started a little while ago, but it looks like it will last all night. He returned to her bedside, book in hand. The doctor said you shouldn't read, as it may strain your eyes. Shall I read to you for a while? Shen Luan blinked. Do I have the honor? You don't want me to? Shen Luan glanced at the cover of the book he held, suddenly feeling playful. Ive read this one. It's not very good. A hint of mischief sparkled in her eyes, stirring something within Qin Gu. Then we shall not read this one. You choose, and I will read whatever you select. Shen Luan felt she might have overindulged after eating and wanted to act a bit spoiled. Yet Qin Gu's accommodating and affectionate tone left her without the strength to resist. Well, anything will do. This one is acceptable. Shen Luan unconsciously fiddled with her fingers. Here was the young master of the Guangyang marquis family, willing to lower himself to read to her, and she was being so particular? Was it not too much? Qin Gu stifled a laugh, rising to fetch several other books for her to choose from. Really choosing? If you're not satisfied with any, there's a bookstore nearby. I can bring back more for you to select from. Shen Luan. She shifted her gaze to the books, unable to meet Qin Gu's eyes, feeling a bit intimidated. She pulled one out and handed it over. Let us go with this one. Qin Gu returned the others to their place, opened the chosen book, and began to read aloud. His voice was deep, particularly resonant in the quiet room. Every word that escaped his lips seemed to possess a tangible quality. This was a book Shen Luan had read before, yet hearing it spoken by Qin Gu felt strangely unfamiliar. In the room. One read softly while the other listened intently, the sound of rain outside mingling with the warm air within. As Shen Luan listened, her eyelids began to grow heavy. After a while, Ziyin entered with the prepared medicine. Shen Luan gulped it down in one go, grimacing but remaining silent. After she swallowed the last bitter drop, Qin Gu popped a piece of candy into her mouth. The sweetness gradually masked the lingering bitterness, and Shen Luan looked up at him, then swiftly lowered her gaze. Just now, did his fingers brush against her lips? Qin Gu's fingers twitched slightly, as if recalling the softness of that fleeting moment. He was acutely aware of that sensation. Yet he hadn't anticipated that his initial intent to simply administer medicine would lead to such an intoxicating experience. Unconsciously, his gaze drifted to her lips. Are you feeling sleepy, my lady? Ziyin noticed Shen Luan's constant blinking and promptly assisted her with her evening routine. Once everything was in order, Shen Luan curiously regarded Qin Gu. Why was he still here? Qin Gu wasted no time, settling comfortably on the stool beside her bed. Ziyin explained, You Haven Tea slept well for nights on end. Today, I will keep you company, so you can rest easy. This is unacceptable, Shen Luan exclaimed, her eyes widening in surprise as she turned to Ziyin. Ziyin looked worried. My lady, the doctor said today that if this continues, we cannot predict when you will recover. The doctor mentioned this is a matter of the heart. Lord Qin saved you. Perhaps having him here will help you find rest. Shen Luan's heart raced. Was this truly a matter of being able to sleep? With Qin Gu beside her, how could she possibly relax? Chapter 158. A singular affection, yet Shen Luan was acutely aware of her dilemma. She could not continue like this. She had tried every method and despised feeling so weak. Qin Gu awaited Shen Luan's response, mentally preparing for any rebuttals, determined to stay by her side that evening. After a moment of silence, Shen Luan, surprised, bit her lip gently. Then, I must trouble Brother Qin. Qin Gu, oh no. It seemed he had forgotten to consider one crucial detail. In his eagerness to gain Shen Luan's consent, he had neglected to contemplate whether he could withstand her presence. Just that slight nibble on her lip seemed to test his self-control. Ziyin, feeling conflicted, stepped outside and closed the door, standing sentinel like a young white poplar. Inside, Shen Luan had already lain down, the flickering candlelight dimming until only one remained. Sleep now. I will guard you. Qin Ji's voice was deep and melodious, and as the calming ingredients of the medicine she had taken began to take effect, Shen Luan gently closed her weary eyes. The heavy gasps seemed to press in from all sides, tightly encircling Shen Luan and leaving her with no escape in the darkness. It felt as if countless hands were reaching out to her, brushing against her neck, moist and clammy. Shen Luan suddenly awoke, the lingering fear in her mind refusing to dissipate, as she yearned to see the light. Was it just a dream? It was nothing, merely a dream. Shen Luan lingered in a daze for a moment, and as her vision cleared, she discovered Qin Gu sitting by her bedside. He raised his hand to touch her forehead, then retrieved a handkerchief to wipe away her fine sweat. Would you like some water? Shen Luan nodded stiffly, watching him pour a cup of warm water from the table and present it to her. Given the weather, the water was still warm, likely just changed recently. After sipping a couple of mouthfuls from the cup, Shen Luan reclined back again. Qin Gu approached and tucked her blanket in snugly, urging her to sleep. His hand continued to hover before her, and when he had touched her forehead earlier, the remnants of fear from her dream inexplicably faded away. Shen Luan stared at him for a while, then suddenly lifted her head. Brother Qin, may I borrow your hand for a moment? Qin Gu, not comprehending, nevertheless extended his hand without hesitation. Shen Luan gently grasped it. His fingers were thicker than hers, and his calloused palm held a great deal of strength. With just one hand, she could only hold two of his fingers. It felt genuinely reassuring. Shen Luan placed Qin Ji's hand beside her pillow, the faint scent of soap wafting from his skin, clean and fresh. Qin Gu watched as Shen Luan slowly closed her eyes again, remaining utterly still. The sensation of her small, soft hand holding his fingers was something Qin Gu had never imagined experiencing. Even in his dreams, her breathing was shallow, gently exhaling warmth against his palm. Each breath for Qin Gu felt like an exquisite torment. He never anticipated that one day, he would be silently reciting military texts to calm his mind. After a while, it seemed Shen Luan had drifted off to sleep. She released the grip on his fingers, yet before Qin Gu could exhale in relief, he noticed Shen Luan leaning her soft cheek against his palm, nuzzling against it, and then remaining still. Qin Gu inhaled sharply, confirming she had not awakened, and couldn't help but find it amusing. He reached with his other hand to pull her blanket up higher, ensuring she was tucked in comfortably. Adjusting to a more comfortable position, Qin Gu leaned back, watching Shen Luan sleep soundly with her cheek pressed against his hand like a little kitten. This girl truly seemed to have an affinity for his hand. The next day, Xian entered the room early, surprised to find Shen Luan still asleep. Qin Gu gestured for her to be quiet, and as Xian tiptoed closer, her face turned green with shock. What was this position? Why was the young lady clinging to Lord Qin's hand? Did she like it that much? Should she chop it off and present it to the young lady? Though Qin Gu was uncomfortable in this position, he remained silent, allowing Shen Luan to continue her slumber. Xian thought better of her idea. After all, it wasn't Lord Qin who was clinging to her. After a while, Shen Luan finally opened her eyes. Blinking against the bright light, she momentarily felt disoriented. Had she really slept an entire night? Unconsciously, she rubbed her cheek, only to hear Xian's slight gasp, which jolted her fully awake, and she realized what she had been rubbing against. Brother Qin, Shen Luan quickly released his hand, her cheeks flushing slightly. You didn't sleep at all last night? Qin Gu withdrew his hand, leaning back for a moment. I got used to it in Beiping. Did you sleep well? Shen Luan could only nod, having slept remarkably well, to the extent that she had ended up clinging to his entire arm. Was her sleeping posture truly that poor? Qin Gu chuckled. That's good. Xian was preparing to assist Shen Luan in getting up. While Qin Gu stepped outside, why lady, having Lord Qin with you truly does wonders. You look much better today. Xian was particularly pleased, while Shen Luan gazed skyward, feeling a sense of despair. Indeed, awakening with clarity felt refreshing. As if she were a demoness feasting on the vitality of others, she shook off the chaotic thoughts in her mind, encouraging herself that tonight she would certainly sleep peacefully, striving not to trouble anyone. However, that night, she awoke once more from a nightmare, instinctively turning to seek Qin Gu. He willingly offered his hand, causing Shen Luan to feel a twinge of embarrassment. This is too much trouble for you. Brother Qin, it's keeping you from sleeping as well. Qin Gu smiled at her. It's no bother. I can rest during the day. Your recovery is the most important thing right now. Shen Luan also longed to get better quickly. She wished to return to the Shen family and not delay Qin Ji's matters any further. Xian had informed her that several parties from Yinqing had come looking for Qin Gu, all of whom he had sent away. Suppressing her guilt and shyness, Shen Luan grasped Qin Ji's hand again, feeling a sense of wonder at how much comfort his hand provided. It felt as though by holding it, the terrifying entities lurking in the darkness of her imagination dared not approach. This time, Qin Gu had learned his lesson and adjusted his position early, drawing closer to Shen Luan. Though she felt somewhat uneasy, she said nothing and soon fell asleep once more. Another night of peaceful slumber passed, and while Xian was delighted, she also felt a twinge of dissatisfaction. Why was Lord Qin even closer to the young lady than the previous day? If they got any closer, they might as well sleep in an embrace. Yet, she dared not speak her mind, only conveying her discontent through her eyes, politely urging Qin Gu to rest in his own quarters. At the door, she smiled sweetly. Lord Qin, my lady is still unwed. We must keep this matter discreet. That would be greatly appreciated. Xian closed the door with a smile, thinking that since Qin Gu was the heir of the Guangyang Marquis, He should keep his word. Shen Luan's condition improved daily, and after the doctor examined her, he finally declared she could get out of bed and ride in a carriage. However, she still needed to be cautious in her recovery to ensure a full recovery. Thank you, doctor. Xian joyfully bid farewell to the doctor and began to tidy up. "My lady, we can finally return, Im. Shen Luan responded softly, slowly walking to the window. Having been bedridden for so long, she had not taken a proper look at her surroundings. This was a small town near Yinqing, bustling due to its proximity to the city. Villagers often came to buy and sell goods. From the not-so-wide streets, the sounds of vendors could be heard. Shen Luan had thought that after experiencing such events, she would be severely affected, that her temperament and mindset would change. Yet, it seemed not to be the case. Upon reflection, what she recalled more vividly was the moment she had bitten Qinggu and the faint scent of soap from his palm. It was indeed time to return. Assisted by Xian, Shen Luan stepped outside to find Qinggu waiting by the carriage. His tall and imposing figure, clad in dark attire, exuded an air of authority. Approaching him, Shen Luan offered a slight bow. "Thank you once again, Brother Qin, for your rescue that I am indebted to you." Shen Luan expressed her gratitude formally, only to have Qinggu suddenly lean down and whisper a few words in her ear. Instantly, Shen Luan's face flushed crimson, and shooting him a glare, she grasped Xian's arm and climbed into the carriage, ignoring him. Outside, Qin Ji's hearty laughter echoed as the carriage wheels rolled away, and Shen Luan pouted inside. Sulking. This man was simply too much. What did he mean by why not offer oneself in return? Why did it seem that those who appeared serious were more familiar with such lines than she was? Qinggu escorted Shen Luan all the way to the gates of the Shen residence, where Jin Shi had received word and was waiting anxiously at the entrance. Upon seeing Shen Luan, Jin Shi embraced her with tearful eyes, exclaiming in distress, "My dear child, you frightened me to death. I heard from Shao that you encountered bandits, and my heart nearly stopped." Shen Luan felt a stir in her heart. Recalling that Qinggu had informed her beforehand that Shao had altered the story slightly upon returning. She and Qin Shu had encountered bandits on their way back, but they were fortuitously rescued by Qinggu and the Ninth Prince, who drove them away. However, Shen Luan had fallen ill from shock, which was why she had lingered outside for a few days. Fearing the bandits might return, Qinggu had taken it upon himself to escort her home. Shen Luan's external injuries have mostly healed, and those that remain do not appear to be serious. Upon seeing Shen Luan with her own eyes, Jin's heart finally settled back into her chest. "Soon, I will go to pay my respects to your grandmother. She has been exceedingly worried these days." Unable to contain herself, Jin embraced her, relieved that everything is well. Nothing can compare to the absence of trouble. Shen Luan leaned against her, inhaling the unique fragrance that enveloped Jin, and peacefully closed her eyes. She has returned safely. After visiting Zhang to assure her of her well-being, Shen Luan returned to her own courtyard to rest. The doctor advised her against excessive movement. The room was filled with a warm coal brazier, yet Shen Luan felt stuffy and requested that a window be opened for ventilation. Leaning back on the soft couch, she propped her head up to gaze outside. Suddenly, her nose twitched slightly as an elusive fragrance of soap pods lingered at its tip. How could this be? After searching for a moment, Shen Luan realized that it seemed to be coming from her own hand. Cautiously, she took a whiff, and her face gradually flushed red. Had she truly absorbed the scent from holding his hand through the night? What is wrong with the young lady? Is her hand dirty? "I shall fetch a basin of water for you to wash, my lady." Xian, noticing Shen Luan's actions, turned to fetch water. Shen Luan instinctively called out to her, "No need, perhaps in a little while, but still. Quite pleasant." "Ah, why is she so unreserved? When Qinggu is absent, I feel so mature, yet upon his return, I revert to being like a young girl. This man must be enchanting." Shen Shao returned home that evening and came directly to Shen Luan. He warmed his hands before gently placing them on her forehead. "What did the doctor say, brother?" "The doctor said I am already well. I merely need to rest." Shen Luan exchanged a glance with Xian, who then stepped out to close the door. "Brother, do mother and grandmother trust your words?" Seeing that she no longer felt feverish, Shen Shao relaxed his hand and chuckled softly. "I in the entirety of Yinqing. Everyone must believe this statement." He lowered his gaze to adjust his sleeve. "This is the truth. Who would dare to doubt it?" Shen Luan felt a sense of admiration. "How impressive. Did Qinggu escort you back?" Shen Luan nodded truthfully. He saved you this time and aided the Shen family. I shall ensure that his kindness is duly acknowledged, so you need not dwell on it excessively. Shen Wanshao narrowed his eyes. If this man has ambitions, it is entirely possible that he will soon become renowned throughout the realm. To be entangled with him may not necessarily be a wise decision. Shen Luan felt perplexed and vaguely sensed that her brother seemed to harbor some reservations about Qin Gu. Upon noticing the confusion in her eyes, Shen Wanshao could not help but sigh. The Marquis of Guangyang is already a significant alliance for the Shen family. Should Qin Gu ascend rapidly in the future, his status would be beyond what the Shen family could aspire to. I do not wish for you to suffer. Shen Luan's eyes widened in disbelief. Brother, what are you talking about? I speak only the truth. Mother has always hoped for your safety and happiness, wishing for you not to live a life of torment. I feel the same. So you should not seek out suffering. Shen Wanshao bore little ill will towards Qin Gu, but the latter's status gave him pause. People can change, especially upon entering the political arena. Shen Wanshao had witnessed such transformations numerous times. Power and women are often viewed as symbols of a man's success, akin to trophies. Once one's status rises, they may disregard those around them, lacking appreciation for their companions. Shen Luan's face flushed with urgency, and Shen Wanshao did not linger long, advising her to rest well and contemplate carefully. The daughters of the third house of the Shen family should not be so foolish. Once again, he accuses me of being foolish. Shen Luan felt indignant. Being foolish for a lifetime would suffice. And she had never truly acted foolishly, had she? Yet, reflecting on her brother's words, it seemed there might be some merit to them. She harbored different feelings for Qin Gu, and it appeared that he reciprocated. But how long could such emotions endure? A year? 5 years? 10 years? What of 10 years hence? Shen Luan gazed absently at the darkening sky outside and called out, Xian, fetch a basin of water. On that day, when Qin Gu escorted Shen Luan back to the manor, in a small alley opposite the Shen residence, Chao Jin observed everything carefully. He fixated on Qin Ji's retreating figure, his eyes burning with intensity. Why did it differ so greatly from what he remembered? Why had Qin Gu returned 6 months earlier than expected? Why was the first thing he did upon his return to seek out Shen Luan? If only he had been a fraction of a moment quicker, he could have won Shen Luan for himself, replicating the heroic rescue narrative. If Shen Luan were compromised, her reputation would be utterly ruined. Even if the third prince had intentions, he could not possibly marry Shen Luan. His own kindness towards Shen Yu had garnered him some reputation, and had he saved Shen Luan with sincerity, success would have been inevitable. Yet, unexpectedly, Qin Gu appeared out of nowhere, whisking Shen Luan away and thwarting all his plans. Chao Jian felt an overwhelming sense of injustice, contemplating that at the very least, the third prince should have succeeded, ensuring that Qin Gu would be left in discomfort, thus avenging himself. You thought you had accounted for everything. Why did you not foresee Yuan Ling's appearance? Those bandits were utterly useless. Captured entirely by Yuan Ling, are you certain this will not implicate me? Yuan's fury was palpable. What utter folly! It has yielded no results whatsoever. Yuan Ling saved Qin Shu, leaving no opportunity for me to step in. If it becomes known who orchestrated these bandits, Yuan harbored murderous thoughts towards Chao Jin. Rest assured, Your Highness, this affair will not implicate you. It was arranged by someone who disguised their identity, ensuring that no evidence will be left behind. Chao Jin was confident, relieved that Yuan Ling seemed unaware of Shen Luan's situation. Currently, Yinqing is aware that both Qin Shu and Shen Luan encountered bandits but were rescued without serious harm. This seems to be a message released by the Shen family, with the Qin family cooperating closely. Shen Luan and Qin Shu's reputations remain largely intact, merely a minor incident with no lasting consequences. He earnestly reassured Yuan, Your Highness, I did not anticipate Qin Ji's early return to Yinqing. The information you received indicated that matters would only conclude 6 months from now. It truly is unexpected. Could you not foresee this? Why this time did you fail? I have done my utmost, yet the world is unpredictable. There are bound to be oversights. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Chao Jian felt utterly powerless. Everything was unfolding differently from his memories. Qin Ji's premature return to Yinqing might affect him in ways unknown. What if Qin Gu fails to quell the unrest in time? Would he no longer pose a threat? Chao Jian harbored a glimmer of hope. But within a few days, his high expectations burst like a bubble at the slightest prick. Qin Gu returned to the palace to report, and for several consecutive days, the emperor kept him within the palace. Upon his exit, the emperor's commendations for Qin Gu soon followed. The Marquis of Guangyang and Qin Gu led troops to quell the unrest. Qin Gu displayed exceptional valor and fearlessness, turning the tide against the chaotic forces. Stabilizing Beiping's peace with remarkable merit, he was promoted to the position of commander of the Guard Army and awarded numerous properties and gold in recognition of his achievements. Young as he was, Qin Gu had already made significant accomplishments. The emperor praised him, stating that he surpassed his predecessors and certainly had the potential to eclipse the Marquis of Guangyang. The Marquis's residence was bustling with visitors offering congratulations. And Qin Gu had rapidly become the most sought-after newcomer in Yinqing, endowed with real power and limitless prospects. This seemed even more sensational than what Xiao Jian remembered. In his recollections, Qin Gu had not returned in such a grand manner. Rather, he had gradually gained notoriety through repeated successful campaigns against bandits. How could he have been promoted to commander of the Guard Army so swiftly? Qin Ji's remarkable achievements sparked considerable discussion in Yinqing. He appeared more composed and steady than when he had left, making others wary of underestimating him. Yet, at home, he often clashed with the Marquis of Guangyang. Do you truly disregard the century-old foundation of the Qin family? The generations of the Qin family have always steered clear of involvement in matters of succession. Must you insist on meddling? Should you err even slightly, how will you face the ancestors of the Qin family? The Marquis of Guangyang was far from pleased with Qin Ji's promotion. It was too high. A tree that stands out will be uprooted by the wind. At this juncture, even if Qin Gu were unwilling, he would inevitably be drawn into the power struggles. Yet, Qin Gu dismissed the notion. I would rather take the initiative than be swept away in the current. Given the current situation, it is impossible to evade entirely. Why must father delude himself? You ungrateful wretch, do you think this only concerns you? This involves our Qin family. We have long sought to keep a low profile, for moderation ensures longevity. Have you ever heeded this advice? Qin Gu had heard it, but had not taken it to heart. He looked down upon self-preservation through moderation, believing that such an approach would ultimately lead only to drifting with the tide. The status of the Marquis of Guangyang renders it impossible to remain aloof. Even if he adhered to his father's wishes, suspicion would still abound. Why should he place himself in a position of weakness? Since evasion is impossible, he must ascend to a position of strength, making the Qin family formidable and thus ensuring their stability for generations to come. As the two prepared to clash again, Qin Shu rolled her eyes and sighed. Father, second brother, have you not argued enough outside? Even at home, you continue to turn red in the face. Are you not weary of this? The Marquis of Guangyang ordered Qin Shu to return to her room. But she refused. I have matters to discuss with my brother. You may finish your quarrel quickly. Faced with his daughter, whom he had not seen in a long time, the Marquis could hardly muster his anger and stormed off, huffily waving his sleeve. Second brother, how is Luan? Was her illness severe? I have not dared to visit her these past few days. Is she well? Upon hearing the name of Shen Luan, Qin Ji's expression softened somewhat. It's all right. You may visit her when you have the time, but do remember the faade you present to others, lest someone discovers the truth. I understand. I will exercise caution. However, what exactly has happened to Luan? When I saw Shen's second brother come to find me, his countenance was particularly alarming. A chill suddenly enveloped Qin Gu, causing Qin Shu to shiver. This matter is not something you need to concern yourself with. What matters is that she is safe. Nevertheless, I shall undoubtedly find out who is behind this, even if I must dig 3 feet into the ground. Chapter 160. A reluctant contest. Qin Shu silently stepped back. Her brother's journey to Beiping had rendered his aura of murderous intent even more formidable. Yet, it was no surprise. Anyone who dared to scheme against her and Shen Luan deserved their fate. Shen Luan was recuperating at home, and after receiving permission, Qin Shu hurried over, bringing along her favorite delicacies. Luan, I've come to see you. Having heeded Qin Ji's warning, Qin Shu refrained from mentioning Shen Luan's ordeal. The two engaged in light-hearted banter, their spirits considerably lifted. By the way, my brother knows I came to see you and specifically asked me how you have been sleeping at night. Were you not sleeping well before? Shen Luan's smile faltered for a moment, and she let out a nervous laugh, diverting the subject. Speaking of this, I've been a bit anxious. After returning home, in her familiar surroundings, Shen Luan no longer suffered from the relentless nightmares that plagued her. Even without Qin Gu by her side, However, she had dreamt of him for 2 consecutive nights, envisioning him seated at her bedside, while she clung to his hand, practically enveloped in his embrace. Was this appropriate? Awakening from such dreams left her languishing in bed for a quarter of an hour, feeling utterly out of sorts. I assure you, I am nearly recovered. There's no need for concern. Just as Shen Luan spoke, Xian approached to report that Shao Ran wished to see her. Lord Shao, please direct him to the side chamber. I shall be there shortly. After saying this, she turned and caught sight of the mischievous expression on Qin Shu's face, which elicited a chuckle. What is with that look, Luan? Be honest with me. What is the nature of your relationship with Shao Ran? Shen Luan gazed skyward, wondering why everyone adopted such peculiar tones when discussing her association with Shao Ran. What could possibly be the matter between me and Lord Shao? Qin Shu leaned in, lowering her voice. You do not harbor feelings for him, do you? Absolutely not. Then does he harbor feelings for you? That simply will not do. He has lost his chance. Opportunities should be given to others. Shen Luan frowned. In any case, I believe he lacks discernment. A good horse does not turn back to graze on old pastures. Shen Luan's irritation turned to amusement. And who is the grass, pray tell? In the side chamber, Shao Ran awaited Shen Luan with a composed demeanor. Learning that she had encountered bandits on her way back to Yinqing, his heart sank like a stone. Would this incident have transpired had he accompanied her? Why had he not gone with her? Merely because Shen Luan had not invited him? Or was it due to his ridiculous pride? Lord, you sought me out. Is there something you wish to discuss? Shen Luan's presence, though slightly more gaunt than before, still exuded calmness and grace. Shao Ran internally chuckled bittersweetly. Every time he saw her, she posed such inquiries. As if he were incapable of approaching her without a purpose. I heard you fell ill and have not had the opportunity to visit until now. Are you feeling better? I am much improved. Thank you for your concern, Lord Shao. That day, had I accompanied you to the temple? Shao Ran's tone was laden with regret, but he was interrupted by Shen Luan's light-hearted laughter. Lord Shao, you needn't blame yourself. This is not something for which you should feel responsible. I am not so unreasonable. She covered her mouth with a soft laugh, occasionally suppressing a cough with warm water. You have your own matters to attend to? Encountering bandits was merely an unfortunate accident. Thankfully, it was a close call, and the incident is behind us, so there's no need to dwell on it further. Shao Ran's visit bore no ulterior motives. It was simply to check on her welfare, which took Shen Luan by surprise. She treated him with utmost courtesy, personally seeing him to the second gate, embodying the demeanor expected of a well-bred young lady. Yet, Shao Ran felt something was amiss. Did she truly bear no resentment? Was it because the incident was not as grave as it seemed? Or was it that, in her heart, he was merely an inconsequential figure? Having recovered, Shen Luan was soon invited by Qin Shu to accompany her into the palace. How had entering the palace become such a commonplace affair? Qin Shu tugged at the hem of Shen Luan's garment. Last time, Yuan Ling helped me out. I haven't had the chance to express my gratitude. Plus, Consort Zhan has mentioned you, saying she was concerned after hearing about our encounter with the bandits. She wishes for us to join her for conversation. You must come along, Luan. With a grimace, she added, if I were to enter the palace alone to express my thanks, I would feel utterly out of place. Shen Luan sighed. What is there to feel out of place about? It is merely a matter of gratitude. Does His Highness the Ninth Prince truly have the audacity to leverage gratitude against you? That is not entirely implausible. Do not be deceived by his seemingly innocent demeanor. He is quite cunning. When it came to the Ninth Prince, Qin Shu could enumerate a plethora of evidence. She pleaded with Shen Luan to accompany her, and Shen Luan had no choice but to acquiesce. The palace soon sent for them, and the Shen family had grown accustomed to this. Jin Shi offered her usual reminders, reassured by the knowledge that Shen Luan would not act recklessly. Once again, they proceeded to visit Consort Zhan, who remained as approachable and gentle as Shen Luan remembered. But truly, you were frightened? I heard that Princess Lecheng fell ill due to the incident. She appears to have lost quite a bit of weight. Shen Luan bowed slightly. I am quite well now. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. That is good to hear. In this world, one should not aspire for great wealth or power. A life of peace and safety is what truly matters. Shen Luan was somewhat taken aback. She had not expected such sentiments to emerge from one so cherished by all. Yet, as she looked at Consort Zhan, her eyes radiated tranquility and grace. Qin Shu departed to express her gratitude to the Ninth Prince. leaving Shen Luan to converse with Consort Zhan. Their conversation flowed smoothly until Consort Zhan suddenly grasped Shen Luan's hand, revealing an injury that had yet to fully heal. Is this from this recent incident? It appears quite severe. Shen Luan felt a twinge of embarrassment. It is not too serious. The injury is merely in the palm and is slow to heal. She looked up and noticed Consort Zhan's gaze fixated on her neck. Did I frighten your highness? I ought to cover this. Though the wound on her neck was shallow, the knife had been exceedingly sharp, leaving a small piece of flesh severed. Although it was no longer an issue, it had left a scar that was rather unsightly. Shen Luan attempted to deflect the topic with a smile, but Consort Zhan's hand trembled slightly as she held Shen Luan's. Your highness, do not be alarmed. I shall find something too. She intended to use a cloth to cover her neck, but felt a pang of regret for having forgotten it in her haste. What would happen if she startled the esteemed consort? However, Consort Zhan did not release her hand. Instead, she retrieved a crimson silk scarf from a nearby cabinet and personally draped it around Shen Luan's neck. Fortunately, it is not a grave matter. Such scars can fade with the right ointment over time. Shen Luan noticed that Consort Zhan's hands still trembled faintly as she tied the scarf. Once it was gently secured, Consort Zhan returned to her usual demeanor, instructing someone to fetch high-quality ointment for her injury. It is not ideal for a young lady to have scars. Use this for now, and I will provide more as needed. Consort Zhan's generosity left Shen Luan speechless. Thank you, your highness, but I have ointments at home. Keep it. Palace supplies are generally of better quality, and I have no use for them here. Reluctantly, Shen Luan accepted, feeling somewhat embarrassed, as though she owed Consort Zhan for every gift received. Once Shen Luan and Qin Shu exited the palace, Yuan Ling came to pay his respects to Consort Zhan. Is mother in poor spirits today? Consort Zhan lifted her gaze to him. Have you uncovered the origins of the bandits that Qin Shu encountered? Yuan Ling appeared taken aback. Mother, why do you inquire about such matters? You have always refrained from meddling in worldly affairs. Indeed. Consort Zhan gazed at the vibrant orchids below the window, delicate and enchanting, yet so fragile that even a strong wind could spell their demise. I possess a letter that I never anticipated needing to reveal. I believed it would accompany me to my grave. Consort Zhan rose and retrieved a yellowed letter from a hidden compartment, turning to hand it to Yuan Ling. In the past, I never urged you to strive for anything. Life is fleeting, and the years slip by in an instant. However, now, only by standing in a position of power can you protect more people. I cannot offer much, but I shall do my utmost to assist you in any way possible. Yuan Ling held the letter, a complex expression flickering across his face before he broke into a smile. Mother, do not worry. I know how to proceed. Consort Zhan yearned for power, but it was a pursuit too simple for her. Who in the court was unaware of the emperor's affection for her? Yet, she had never been one to compete or covet, embodying the essence of serenity and disinterest. Over the years, she had cultivated an image of tranquility, ensuring her words would never be doubted by the emperor. She had never sought contention, yet now, she found herself compelled to engage in it. The citizens of Yinqing had all heard of the incident involving Shen Luan and Qin Shu's encounter with bandits. Since no harm had been inflicted, they did not perceive it as a significant matter. Yet, what seemed to be a trivial topic of conversation soon escalated into a grand affair, as the court issued a resounding decree for a thorough investigation. The emperor entrusted this task to Yuan Ling, who dispatched the Jinyue to conduct a meticulous inquiry. Yuan Shen felt a fleeting moment of panic, but he strove to maintain his composure. Upon returning to his residence, he erupted in fury, ordering that Chao Jin be brought before him. Did you not assure me that there would be no slip-ups? The bandits have already been apprehended and executed. Why is there still a need for a thorough investigation? Could it be that some clue has escaped? Chao Jin was summoned, his clothes creased in several places. He swallowed his indignation and reassured, Your Highness, I have not deceived you. There were indeed no oversights. You need not worry. Even with a detailed inquiry, nothing will be traced back to you. How can I feel at ease? Why has my father taken such an unexpected interest in this matter? Why would he concern himself with such trifles? He must harbor suspicions. Why entrust this investigation to Yuan Ling and not to me? Does my father doubt me? Yuan Shan's mind began to spiral with paranoia as his gaze fell upon Chao Jian. And anger surged within him. He kicked Chao Jin in the shoulder, sending him sprawling to the ground. Had I known this would happen, I should never have heeded your insidious words and acted against the Qin family. Chao Jin winced in pain but gritted his teeth. Your Highness, please do not be angry, I assure you. There will be no implications for you. The ninth prince will certainly uncover nothing. The emperor's actions are likely just for show to placate Qin Gu. There is no real suspicion. You had better pray that is the case, otherwise. Yuan Shen's eyes glinted with a trace of murderous intent, sending a shiver down Chao Jin's spine. He was all too familiar with Yuan Shen's character. Yet he had no choice but to place his fate in his hands. Yuan Shen spared Chao Jin's life for the moment but had lost faith in his words. Yuan Ling, having received the emperor's directive, commenced a rigorous investigation. Yuan Shen had initially thought Yuan Ling lacked the acumen for such inquiries. After all, he merely had to lend his name, tossing the matter into the hands of the Jinui or the Dali Temple, and await the fruits of their labor to claim credit before the emperor. Little did he know, Yuan Ling was taking matters into his own hands. Chapter 161. I have exercised restraint to Yuan Shen's surprise. Yuan Ling proved to possess some skill, managing to extract a few details from the bandits, launching a citywide manhunt for those who had been in contact with them. Shen Luan had also heard whispers of the incident within the Shen household. As Shen Wenxiao took a keen interest, occasionally visiting her to discuss the matter, it is often said that young ladies need not delve deeply into certain affairs, yet you are different. You must know what is necessary. What can you recall about that day? Shen Luan endeavored to recollect, but each memory seemed to freeze Shen Wenxiao to the core. Brother, I find Shu's outfit peculiar. It is the same one she wore when she left that morning. Anyone attempting to disguise themselves would surely have changed their attire. Yet those bandits fortuitously seized that very outfit, which just happened to be soiled and discarded. Shen Wenxiao's face grew cold. I have already contemplated this matter and relayed the information to the Qin family. You need not dwell on that day any further. Each time Shen Luan attempted to recall the events, her face turned pale, and Shen Wenxiao regretted approaching her. The physician mentioned you have not been resting well lately. Would you like me to prescribe some calming medicine? Shen Luan quickly shook her head. No need, I do not wish to take any more medicine. It is only that I occasionally have nightmares at night. But it is of no consequence. Is it truly of no consequence? Indeed, brother, you need not worry. As Shen Wenxiao departed the courtyard, he noticed a young maid carrying a small box inside, but he thought nothing of it and left. Miss, it is a delivery from the Duke of Guangyang. Shen Luan, without suspicion, assumed Shu had discovered something amusing. However, upon opening the box and seeing its contents, her face flushed crimson, and she quickly closed it again. You all, leave me. Ziyun ushered the servants out and secured the door. Once she was certain no one remained, Shen Luan reopened the box. Inside lay a pair of exquisite fur-lined handguards, clearly intended for warmth. While it was not uncommon for the Duke of Guangyang to send her gifts, something felt amiss. These handguards were evidently not meant for her. They were far too large. When she placed her hand inside, there was ample space. Clearly, these were crafted for a man. Shen Luan bit her lip and extracted the handguards, a faint scent of soap wafting from the box, causing her cheeks to heat up. Beneath the handguards lay a letter, and upon opening it, she recognized Qin Ji's handwriting. The letter expressed concern for her restless nights, stating that while he could not deliver his own hands, he had cleaned his favored handguards and sent them to her, hoping they would provide some comfort. The letter concluded with his eagerness to visit in person, for after all, the effect would be better. Shen Luan fanned herself with the letter, exasperated by his audacity. How had she never realized he possessed such shamelessness? Infuriated, she contemplated returning the gift, but then her gaze fell upon her reflection in the mirror, and she froze. Her complexion had indeed been poor of late, plagued by nightmares that seemed to resurface, yet she did not wish to worry her mother or others, so she had said nothing. If this continued, her family would surely notice. Shen Luan's gaze returned to the handguards, their wide leather surface soft to the touch. She tentatively placed her hand inside one, enveloped in its warmth, sealed off from the world. I must be losing my mind. In a flurry, Shen Luan withdrew her hand, her face aflame as she tossed the handguards back into the box, sealing it shut and stowing it away in the cabinet. That night, Shen Luan was once more jolted awake by nightmares. As Ziyun went to fetch her water, Shen Luan's gaze drifted to the cabinet where the box lay. She slipped out of bed, barefoot, and hastily retrieved the box, placing it by her bedside before Ziyun returned. Ziyun returned with water and presented it to Shen Luan. Miss, this is not advisable. Perhaps you should invite the physician back for a checkup. Shen Luan took a sip of water and handed the cup back. It is nothing. There is no need for that. You should retire for the night. Once Ziyun left, Shen Luan quietly retrieved the box and took out the handguard's eye in the darkness. The scent of soap seemed even more pronounced. Shen Luan gently slid her hand inside and slowly closed her eyes. When she awoke the next morning, daylight streamed in, and Shen Luan blinked in disbelief. Could it be effective? Miss, you are awake? Hearing Ziyun's voice, Shen Luan swiftly tucked the handguards beneath the covers. You slept well through the latter part of the night. You seem much more spirited today. It appears there is no need to summon the physician after all. Ziyun hung the bed curtains and assisted Shen Luan in rising. Seizing the opportunity, Shen Luan returned the handguards to the box and tucked it away at the head of her bed. Entrusting her recent restful nights to them, planning to return them to Qin Gu when the time was right. The case involving the bandits continued to unfold, and Shen Luan and Qin Shu became figures of intrigue, with numerous young ladies finding their experiences particularly fascinating. Whenever they ventured out for a gathering, the admiration in the voices of the young ladies was palpable. How thrilling it was that the ninth prince, the heir of the Duke of Guangyang, and Lord Shao from the supervisory court were all investigating this matter. Oh, how fortunate it would be if these gentlemen took an interest in her affairs. Shen Luan could not comprehend this and merely smiled politely. What was there to be gained from such dangerous and troublesome matters? This was the last social engagement of the year, one that had been arranged previously. The garden was adorned with blooming red plums, and following a recent snowfall, some blossoms still bore traces of snow, enhancing the vibrancy of the petals, which was truly a sight to behold. The host prepared plum wine brewed with green plums to entertain the guests. Shen Luan dared not indulge too much. After lingering indoors feeling stifled, she stepped outside for some fresh air. Our plums are blooming beautifully as well. When we return, please fetch 2 plum vases from the storeroom and gather some branches to display. It will surely look lovely. Ziyun nodded in agreement. The vases are already prepared. Did you not mention wanting to gather plum petals to brew wine for the old madam? The timing is perfect. As Shen Luan strolled leisurely, admiring the flowers, she paused beneath a plum tree, unaware of why the branches trembled slightly, causing the delicate snow to cascade down upon her. What just happened? Ziyun hurriedly produced a handkerchief to wipe Shen Luan's face, who found the situation amusing and burst into laughter. I said amusing. Hearing someone speak, Shen Luan turned to see Qin Gu standing a short distance away, a smile gracing his features as he watched her. Brother Qin, what brings you here? I was invited to appreciate the blossoms. However, flowers brought indoors cannot compare to those in the open air, so here I am. Qin Gu approached Shen Luan, snowflakes clinging to his hat. He raised a hand to gently brush the snow from her, and Shen Luan obediently lowered her head, murmuring, "You must clean it off. Otherwise, it will melt soon." Very well. Qin Gu brushed the snow away with the utmost care, then lightly patted her shoulder. Ziyun looked on, perplexed. She had already cleared the snow from the young lady's shoulders. How could she remain so cheerful after being doused in snow? It is quite delightful. Shen Luan laughed again, feeling the chill, yet curious as to why it had suddenly snowed. Oh, I see. Shen Luan. She raised her head in a daze, noticing the glimmer of amusement in Qin Ji's eyes. He picked up a small stone from the ground and tossed it gently, striking the trunk of a nearby plum tree with precision. The branches swayed lightly, and delicate snowflakes cascaded down like a mist. Is it beautiful? Shen Luan nodded, regaining her senses, her eyes flashing with fierceness. So it was you who got me covered in snow. However, I also helped you clear some away. It seems there's nothing wrong with that? Shen Luan puffed her cheeks, showing a momentary display of anger before quickly relenting. Ziyun, standing beside her, was speechless. Was it merely about clearing away the snow? Was the heir of Guangyang Marquis truly so idle? The two wandered leisurely through the garden. Noticing her hands exposed to the cold air, Qin Gu quickly grasped her hand for a fleeting moment before releasing it. Is it cold? Why aren't you wearing any gloves? I came out for some fresh air. It's not cold. Shen Luan saw no issue, glancing down at Qin Ji's hands. Aren't you also barehanded? That's because I gave away the gloves I usually wear. Shen Luan felt as though she had dug herself a deep pit. She straightened her posture, gazing straight ahead, and uttered a soft "oh," as if this matter had no connection to her. Qin Gu suppressed a laugh in his heart. maintaining a serious expression as he asked, "Aren't you curious who I gave them to? After all, they were my personal belongings, which I haven't replaced in years." Shen Luan shot him a glare, her eyes filled with mock ferocity, and turned to leave. "I'm going back. You can enjoy the flowers by yourself, Brother Qin." Qin chuckled softly behind her. "Don't. It's so dull alone. I don't care." Shen Luan continued walking without pausing, disappearing swiftly with Ziyin. Shao peeked out from behind Qin. "Master, you scared Miss Shen away, and yet you're so happy. Even when angry, she looks so lovely. If she didn't run, I might lose control. It seems you're not really controlling yourself right now." He was touching her head and hands. If it were another girl, she would immediately think him a lecher. "Am I not controlling? I'm very much in control." Qin had specifically come out to see Shen Luan and returned satisfied, not regretting his venture into the cold to admire the flowers with those people. The plum garden returned to tranquility, and unbeknownst to both Shen Luan and Qin, there was indeed a third person present. Shao Ren slowly approached the spot where Shen Luan had stood, his mind filled with images of her and Qin's lively interactions, so vivid and natural, her charming smiles, her anger, her fierce glares, her helplessness. These expressions Shen Luan had never displayed in front of him. She could smile adorably and gracefully, with a whimsical charm, yet there was so much more absent. Shao Ran had once thought himself special, believing Shen Luan was at ease around him, unrestrained and speaking her mind, unlike other girls who were reserved and reticent. But now he suddenly realized that her ease in his presence was precisely because she harbored no romantic notions about him, which allowed her to be unembarrassed. The one she liked was the heir of Guangyang Marquis. A sour taste crept into his heart, slowly eating away at him. He had been the one engaged to Shen Luan. If not for the broken engagement, would those lively expressions have been directed toward him? Regret washed over Shao Ran, yet his gaze gradually grew colder. Perhaps there was still a chance for redemption. Chapter 162. She is quite clever. Shen Luan suddenly noticed that Shao Ran's visits to the Shen residence had increased. Is young Master Shao here again? Could it be that there is something urgent? Shen Luan was puzzled. Upon meeting Shao Ran, he did not mention any urgent matters. "I happened to pass by the West City Street and heard you like the crispy candy from this shop, so I brought some for you." "Thank you, Lord Shao." Shen Luan instructed Ziyin to put away the candy, recognizing it as her favorite, although her home always had a supply. "Did Lord Shao come specifically to deliver candy to me?" "Yes." Shen Luan felt a touch of warmth. What a wonderful person he was. "Lord Shao must be returning to Ganzhou for the new year, right? Do you know when you'll leave? I should prepare some New Year gifts for you to take back." "The Emperor has already granted leave. I'll be departing in a couple of days." "That's perfect." Ziyin, go have someone bring everything over. After Shen Luan gave her instructions, she turned to Shao Ran and smiled. "These are just small tokens. Please don't think little of them. The Shao family has been gracious to the Shen family, especially to me. After my parents passed away, you returned me to Yinqing, for which I am eternally grateful. So please do not decline. It is my heartfelt gesture." Shao Ran gazed at her for a while. "Do you have no grievances against the Shao family?" Shen Luan widened her eyes in surprise. "What grievances could there be? A life-saving grace deserves to be repaid with gratitude. Though I may not have extensive education, I do understand the principles of gratitude. I was referring to the matter of the broken engagement." Shen Luan looked at his serious demeanor and sighed softly. "How long ago was that? Why bring it up now?" "Lord Shao, marriage is a matter of fate. I have no connection with you, so how could I harbor any resentment? This matter was my father's mistake, casually agreed upon. It must have troubled you for many years. If anything, I should apologize to you on behalf of my father." As Shen Luan spoke, she actually stood up, pretending to bow to Shao Ran. It was meant to be a jest, but to her surprise, Shao Ran grasped her arm, startling Shen Luan, who quickly straightened and withdrew her arm. "Lord Shao." Shao Ran's palm was empty, his downcast expression concealed as he stared intently at her. "What if I said I do harbor resentment?" Shen Luan was bewildered. Had she not already apologized? "What if I feel that we are not fated to be?" Shen Luan understood his implication and widened her eyes slightly. "The matter of the broken engagement was my oversight. I was overly arrogant and should apologize to you. I realize my previous attitude disappointed you, but I will make amends. This time when I return to Ganzhou, I will discuss this matter with my parents." "What matter?" Shen Luan's mouth fell slightly agape, her eyes filled with astonishment. while Shao Ran felt a sense of relief for finally speaking out. After a moment, Ziyin returned with the gifts, and Shao Ran did not refuse to accept them, bidding farewell to the still-stunned Shenluan as he left with the items. Ziyin noticed Shenluan's daze. "Miss, what's wrong? Pinch me? Huh?" Shenluan rolled up her sleeve and extended her arm. "Pinched?" Ziyin, puzzled but obedient, gently pinched her. Shenluan blinked, feeling the pain. "It's true. I'm not dreaming. Why has Shao Ran suddenly become so unusual? What happened to young Master Shao? He said he regrets it. He wants to return and discuss the marriage between the Shao and Shen families." Shenluan found the words surreal as they left her lips. Shao Ran, who had no ties with her in her past life, now claimed he wished for a connection with her. Shenluan floated back to her courtyard, maintaining a look of shock for quite some time before recovering. Ziyin deftly busied herself beside her, and Shenluan curiously asked, "Aren't you shocked?" Ziyin poured her a cup of tea and placed it in front of her. "Not shocked. I mentioned it before. It was you who didn't believe it, always saying that Lord Shao was here to discuss serious matters." She casually wiped the table. "You're not a court official. Why would there be so many serious matters to discuss with you? It was only you who remained oblivious," mocking her for overthinking. "Now it has been proven, hasn't it?" Shenluan took a sip of tea to calm her nerves. "But why? Could it be that Shao Ran has developed feelings for me after the broken engagement?" Shenluan thought herself quite conceited. "However, miss, I believe you need not worry." "Why do you say that?" "I just feel that Lord Zhao's intentions may not come to fruition." "Have you forgotten the Shao family's stance on this marriage?" The old matriarch was furious. "This matter is far from simple. Yan's analysis was thorough, but I think the heir of Guangyang Marquis has feelings for you enough." Shenluan shot her a glare. "Why bring up the Guangyang Marquis household?" Ziyin pouted. "If you don't want to hear it, fine. I didn't say anything wrong anyway. You'll understand eventually. You're quite clever." As the new year approached, Yinqing began to fill with festive cheer. The Jin family assisted Shenluan in preparing for the new year, purchasing goods and having new clothes made for everyone in the household. After the division of the family, the Jin family did not want the Zhang family to feel neglected. Hence, they organized a grand celebration. Every servant in the Shen household received 2 new outfits, and various delicacies were purchased without restraint to stock up. Shenluan personally crafted a set of clothing for both Zhang Shi and Jin Shi, which were comfortable and well-fitted, earning her several compliments from Zhang Shi. Upon learning of this, Shen Wenxiao said nothing, yet appeared before Shenluan wearing the same old pair of shoes for several days. Shenluan could hardly pretend not to notice, so she made him 2 pairs of new shoes and sent them over. "Thank you, sister." Shen Wenxiao received them with a calm expression, casually putting them away. "I don't really need these, but since it's your kind gesture, I will accept them." Shenluan, "Brother, as long as you are happy." For the servants who were returning home for the new year, Shenluan generously bestowed upon them ample silver. In an instant, the household felt considerably less populated, yet it remained far from desolate. Although they had separated their residences, the customary gifts for the new year still needed to be prepared. Shenluan consulted with Madame Jane, and according to their respective allocations, everything was arranged. Your brother's maternal family had previously extended assistance, so after the new year, you and Wenxiao should visit and personally deliver the gifts. Shenluan nodded. In the past, she had little desire to visit, as she was not particularly close to her brother, let alone his maternal family. However, now that her relationship with her brother had improved significantly, Shenluan recognized the importance of these intricate familial ties, and thus she obediently acquiesced, much to Madame Jin's delight. "Mother, what about your maternal family?" Madame Jin replied calmly. "Just send a gift. They may not even regard the Shen family highly anymore." Shenluan pressed her lips together. The Jin family had agreed to her mother's remarriage due to her father's remarkable abilities. Yet who could have foreseen that despite his extraordinary talents, his life would be cut short? And the Shen family had failed to prosper in the years that followed. "Mother, let me accompany you back there sometime." Madame Jin was taken aback, deeming it unnecessary. "But that is your mother's family. It would be improper to neglect them entirely. Now that your brother is so successful, don't you wish to return and take pride in it?" Shenluan winked at her, prompting Madame Jin to break into a smile. "Very well, I will heed your suggestion." The remaining servants in Yen City, with whom they had close ties, also prepared gifts, and in the midst of this bustling activity, the new year approached. They cleaned away the impurities, tidied the household, replaced the door gods, hung up zhongkue, nailed peach charms, affixed spring festival couplets, and paid homage to their ancestors. Shen Luan donned a newly tailored skirt and jacket, her hair adorned with entirely fresh decorations. Looking increasingly lovely and charming, with a vibrant and intelligent demeanor, she had been sweet-talking with the Zhang matriarch, smiling and engaging her in conversation, bringing endless joy to Zhang Shi. Shen Wenshao did not need to go to the Hanlin Academy, choosing instead to stay by Madame Jin's side, as the whole family gathered together in a lively and cheerful atmosphere. As night fell, the family enjoyed a meticulously prepared New Year's Eve dinner, filled with warmth and delicacies, symbolizing reunion. After the feast, they gathered together to welcome the new year. Shen Luan yearned to set off firecrackers but hesitated. After much contemplation, she tugged at Shen Wenshao's sleeve. He glanced at her, unperturbed, and lit the incense without changing his expression. Shen Luan watched excitedly, her cheeks flushed, and after the crackling ceased, she looked at Shen Wenshao with anticipation. Thus, he became an emotionless incense burner. The household servants joined in the merriment, and Madame Jean distributed generous amounts of lucky money to each, their faces beaming with joy. However, due to her advanced age, Zhang Shi could no longer stay awake and retreated to rest. Shen Luan, brimming with energy, led the household servants in setting off firecrackers, playing games, and even engaging in small gambling. Ignoring Shen Wenshao's stern expression, Shen Luan thought to herself, it was the new year. After all, could she not relax a little? Madame Jean found herself powerless against Shen Luan's antics, while Shen Wenshao, seeing that he could not rein her in, sighed and retreated to his study to read. Surrounded by laughter and joy, Shen Luan gazed up at the darkening sky, inhaling deeply and blissfully closing her eyes. Though she had experienced it several times before, each occasion felt utterly surreal. She could celebrate the new year so freely, a notion she had never dared to entertain before. But this was reality. She had distanced herself from the spacious yet cold and oppressive confines of the Chao family's inner court, far removed from those who would drain her of every last drop of vitality. No longer would anyone dare to belittle her during the new year, suggesting she remain indoors, lest her scar bring misfortune. Shen Luan straightened her back, declaring, I bet small. As midnight approached, Shen Luan began to feel drowsy but resolutely refused to sleep. It was the vigil, after all, and required her full attention. After a while, Ziyun quietly approached the courtyard entrance and whispered in Shen Luan's ear, Miss, the heir of the Guangyang Marquis is waiting for you at our doorstep. Shen Luan jolted, inadvertently placing her small wager on a larger one. The lady's luck seems to be lacking today. Will she break even this time? The lively young servant exaggeratedly lifted the bowl. Glancing at the contents and immediately showering her with praise, Miss, you are remarkable. Chapter 163. Just on the way, Shen Luan fell silent, deciding to forfeit the winnings and let everyone share. Why would Qinggu come at this hour? Ziyun lowered her voice, Miss, do you wish to meet him? If not, I can send someone to turn him away. It is quite cold out. Her words exhaled wisps of fog, and Shen Luan pondered for a moment before heading toward the entrance. Qinggu was waiting at the side door. There was no one else in sight on the street, not even Shao Wu, as he stood alone outside. The door creaked gently as Shen Luan stepped out. Qinggu frowned upon seeing her. Why are you dressed so lightly? Don't catch a chill with that. He immediately unfastened his cloak and draped it around Shen Luan. The large, soft cloak enveloped her petite frame, shielding her from the biting cold. Shen Luan rubbed her hands together. I'm not cold. Did you come to find me for something, Brother Qin? Qinggu retrieved a small pouch from his bosom and handed it to Shen Luan. What is this? Shen Luan opened the pouch and poured out several exquisitely crafted silver charms shaped like various small animals. Though tiny, each was charming and delightful. How adorable! Shen Luan had seen animal-shaped silver charms before, but such intricate craftsmanship was rare. Qinggu smiled, tightening the cloak around her. I knew you would like them, so I brought them to you before the first day of the new year, as a good luck charm. Shen Luan held the heavy pouch of silver charms. The Guangyang Marquis residence was not nearby, and he had come out in the middle of the night just to deliver this? All right, let us go inside. It's cold out here. With his goal achieved upon seeing Shen Luan, Qinggu added, soon, your household servants will be looking for you. Shen Luan attempted to return the cloak, but Qinggu insisted, keep it on. You are delicate and I don't want you catching a chill. What about you? Qinggu smiled at her. When I see you, I no longer feel cold. Shen Luan. How audacious! She turned and walked back inside, quietly saying as she closed the door, "Be careful on your way back." Once the door was shut, the sound of receding footsteps echoed from outside. Chingu stood outside for a while, satisfied. Before departing. Upon returning to the courtyard, Luan was taken aback to find Shen when Shao had appeared once more. "Brother." She skipped towards him, but halfway there, she realized something was amiss. Qingji's cloak still draped over her shoulders. As expected, Shen Shao narrowed his eyes. "That cloak isn't yours, is it?" Luan swallowed hard, steeling herself to reply, Did you just go to meet someone?" "I just happened to pass by, came to wish someone a happy new year." "At this hour?" Luan looked skyward. "Indeed. Even I find it hard to believe." Shen Shao approached and touched the cloak. "Such a flashy style. I can guess whose it is without hesitation. Does the Guangyang Marca residence have no curfew? Letting someone out in the dead of night to disturb my sister?" As Luan braced herself for further inquiries from Shen Shao, he unexpectedly handed her a yellow cloth bag, adorned with imperial characters. "They say it brings good fortune. I have no interest in such things," he remarked. Luan's eyes widened as she opened the cloth bag, revealing several pieces of silver and a few gold coins. The monetary value was secondary. What mattered was that it was a royal gift. "Truly for me?" she asked, holding it in awe. Shen Shao glanced at her. "If you don't want it, I do." Luan hugged it tightly. "How could I return such a generous gift?" Shen Shao observed her for a moment, then muttered, "Money grubber." A money grubber she may be, but Luan reveled in it. Her smile bloomed like a flower. "Thank you, brother. May you continue to prosper and ascend to greater heights. Is that so?" Shen Shao lightly tapped her on the head, preparing to leave. Before departing, he gave the cloak a final glance. "Remember to return it. Does the Shen family lack cloaks?" Luan fell silent, nodding vigorously like a chick pecking at rice, as she saw Shen Shao off, having successfully celebrated New Year's Eve. The following morning, Luan energetically went to pay her respects to Zhang Shi and Madame Jean. On the first day of the new year, every household honored their ancestors. The offerings had long been prepared, and the Shen family had no custom of forbidding women from participating in the rituals. After bowing and kneeling before their ancestors alongside Zhang Shi and Madame Jean, Luan and Shen Shao offered incense and knelt in prayer separately. Zhang Shi, perhaps reminiscing about the past, appeared somewhat melancholic, and Luan refrained from being overly lively in such a solemn setting, offering gentle words of comfort instead. Following the elaborate rituals, they anticipated the festivities beginning the next day. With lion and dragon dances, operas, storytelling, and stilt performances outside Yin City, all leading up to the Lantern Festival on the 15th, ensuring there would be no moments of boredom. Luan had already made plans with Qin Shu to enjoy the festivities together. But upon meeting Qin Shu, she realized it might not be necessary, as Qin Gu would also be present. "The streets are bustling today. Do stay close and do not wander off, with Qin Gu watching over us." Luan and Qin Shu are thoroughly enjoying themselves, their hands always occupied with snacks, engaging in laughter and chatter without pause. "Luan, when will you be leaving the city? In a few days?" Luan nodded, mentioning she would accompany her brother to his maternal home and also accompany her mother back to her familial residence, indicating she would be away from Yin City for some time. "I will miss you," Qin Shu lamented, clinging to Luan's arm and acting adorably. Luan chuckled, promising to bring her a gift upon her return, recalling that Qin Shu had expressed a desire to practice her archery skills during the New Year celebrations to impress the 9th prince. "Who cares about him? Just make sure you return soon," Qin Shu replied. Luan agreed, and the two indulged in their merriment for several days. On the eve of Luan's departure, Qin Gu personally escorted her back to the Shen residence. "Be cautious on the road. Ensure you have enough company," he advised. Luan nodded, as the Jean family feared encountering bandits again, having made ample preparations. "Does the protective wrist guard I gifted you prove useful?" Luan's cheeks flushed, her nod almost imperceptible. She had overestimated her own resilience and underestimated the impact this event had on her. She found it difficult to sleep at night without placing the wrist guard beside her pillow. "What a peculiar habit. Then take it with you. This wrist guard has accompanied me to Beiping and is sure to keep you safe." Luan instructed Xian to return to the courtyard and fetch Qinji's cloak, which he had long intended to return but had never found the opportunity. She couldn't possibly return it in front of Qin Shu, for fear that the girl would misconstrue the situation. Qin Gu chuckled as he took the cloak, draping it over himself with a flourish, his demeanor and expression appearing rather strange in Shen Luan's eyes. I shall take my leave now, Lord Qin. Do walk slowly. Qin Gu gently grasped Shen Luan's wrist, asking, what about the gifts for Shu Shu? Do I not have a share? Yes, 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 you all do, Shen Luan responded, noticing he still held onto her wrist. She turned to give him a playful glare, prompting Qin Gu to smile wider before finally releasing her. Watching as she dashed into the house, I feel increasingly like a rogue, he mused. Shao Wu stood nearby, hands tucked away, surprised that the young master had this awareness. It was indeed no small feat yet. I did not anticipate the allure would be so irresistible. Shao Wu's expression darkened. Such behavior could lead to trouble. You cannot engage with her alone. It is simply too tempting, young master. We ought to return promptly. If others overhear, it could lead to official reports. The heir's gaze toward Miss Shan grew increasingly perilous. They needed to act quickly, lest the heir's image devolve into that of a rogue. Shen Luan organized the carriage, laden with gifts, and set off with Shen Wanxiao to his maternal home. Shen Wanxiao's mother hailed from the Xie family of Dingkong Marquis residence. The bond between the Xie family and their father, Shen Yuanxiao, had been quite profound. However, after the unfortunate demise of Shen Wanxiao's mother during childbirth, Shen Yuanxiao had descended into melancholy. Following her passing, particularly after Shen Yuanxiao remarried, the relationship between the Xie and Shen families had significantly diminished. Nevertheless, when Shen Wanxiao had been wrongfully imprisoned, the Xie family had not turned a blind eye to the Shen family's pleas. Although their help had ultimately proven ineffective, Shen Luan felt a deep sense of gratitude. It was her first time visiting the Xie family, and she inquired, brother, what is the Xie family like? Having never been there herself, Shen Wanxiao also seldom visited, leaving Shen Luan with no recollection of the family. He sat quietly in the carriage, contemplating her question and responding, there is nothing particularly special. They are not much different from the families you encounter in Yen City. Who wants to hear that? Who are the members of the Xie family? I fear I might embarrass myself by not recognizing them. My birth mother was the youngest daughter of the Xie family, with two elder brothers, each having children of their own. My maternal grandmother has passed away, but my grandfather remains in good health. The Xie family now consists of only these two branches, so there is nothing difficult to recognize. Does your birth mother have any sisters? They must also reside within the Xie family, right? She has 3 elder sisters and their children. I cannot claim to know them all. Shen Wanxiao abandoned his recollection. Glancing at Shen Luan, who was earnestly trying to memorize the information, he asked curiously, what is there to be embarrassed about not recognizing them? You do not rely on them for your livelihood. But I wish to leave them with a good impression. After all, it is my brother's maternal family, Shen Luan stated matter-of-factly. Shen Wanxiao was momentarily taken aback. The Xie family had almost no connection to Shen Luan, and yet it was because of him that she placed such importance on it. He knew that while Shen Luan managed to handle social engagements well, she did not particularly enjoy them. She preferred managing the shop and taking delight in watching the silver flow. It is of no consequence. Once you arrive, you will understand. The Xie family is known for their low-profile conduct and are not particularly difficult to get along with. Even if they are somewhat aloof towards you, there is no need to take it to heart. Shen Wanxiao's thoughtful consideration was rare, preparing her for what lay ahead. After all, Shen Luan and Shen Wanxiao were not full siblings, and having never visited the Xie family before, it was only natural that they would not be overly welcoming. However, should anyone say anything to you, do not feel compelled to endure it. We are not going there to be disrespected. Shen Wanxiao's expression remained indifferent, and Shen Luan smiled in agreement. I understand. You need not worry, brother. Chapter 164. Too courteous. Upon arriving at the Xie family, Shen Luan stepped down from the carriage and stood beside Shen Wanxiao. The grand entrance of the Dingkong Marquis residence was adorned with peachwood talismans and hung with red lanterns, radiating a festive atmosphere. However, the servants waiting at the entrance were dressed in somewhat worn attire. Young master and young lady, please come inside. The old master has been expecting you and has instructed the servants to tidy the courtyard in anticipation of your arrival. The servants led them inside, and as Shen Luan entered, she discreetly observed her surroundings. The Xie family's residence bore signs of age and neglect, appearing somewhat more dilapidated than the Shen residence before its division. There were not many servants attending to them, and it seemed less well-maintained than the previous Shen household. The servants guided them directly to pay their respects to the elder Xie. Upon entering the hall, several individuals were already present. Shen Luan heard a clear and cheerful female voice exclaim, Ah, you finally made it. We have been eagerly awaiting your arrival since we received your letter. Come quickly, let the old master have a good look at you. Suddenly, a woman approached her, beaming as she warmly took Shen Luan's hand. You must be Luan girl. I have long wished to meet you, today. I finally have the pleasure, and you are indeed a delicate and lovely young lady. I like you at first sight. Shen Luan looked up to see a woman dressed in a vibrant red new coat, adorned with jewels and flowers in her hair, her eyes squinting with delight as she regarded Shen Luan. I am your brother's second aunt. You may call me that as well. Shen Luan gracefully performed a curtsy, addressing her accordingly. Having visited the palace several times, Shen Luan's manners were markedly more refined and composed compared to other young ladies, exuding an elegance that momentarily stunned the second mistress of the Xie family before her smile returned. Look at you, as I said, once you're conferred the title of county princess, it makes all the difference. The poise is something others cannot replicate. Despite receiving compliments, Shen Luan maintained a humble demeanor, still smiling gently as she accompanied Shen Wanshao to pay their respects to the elder Xie. The elder Xie, though advanced in years, appeared in good spirits, speaking with vigor and grandly gesturing for a large red envelope to be presented to them. The elder mistress of the Xie family, composed and steady, presented them with gifts after their greeting, while the second mistress continued to praise Shen Luan, repeating her admiration with fresh enthusiasm, leaving Shen Luan pleasantly surprised. Wasn't it agreed that they would not be overly cordial? The Xie family indeed consisted of only 2 branches, yet Shen Wanshao's mother's 2 sisters were also present, prompting Shen Luan to refer to them as aunts. However, upon hearing this, the eldest aunt smiled enigmatically, saying, I cannot accept that. My sister has only 1 son. When did she acquire a daughter? The expressions of those in the hall varied, each awaiting Shen Luan's response, but before she could react, Shen Wanshao had already led her to the second aunt. This is the second aunt. Shen Luan, slightly dazed, followed suit in addressing her, and it dawned on everyone that Shen Wanshao seemed to be disregarding the eldest aunt entirely.